and took out the small porcelain bottle. When Suwon saw this, he jumped up with a start. No, how could he? Turning around and seeing his wife's shocked expression, he couldn't help but give a meaningful smile. Let me help you apply the medicine. He shook the porcelain bottle in his hand. No. How would you know? She quickly pulled the quilt to cover herself. Although Mammy lowered her voice just now, I still heard it. I am very sensitive to sounds. As long as I want to know, I can guess it, silly girl. He sat on the edge of the bed and pretended to lift her quilt. Suwon refused. I can do it myself. I don't need your help. It's not like you haven't seen it before. Are you shy? We are husband and wife. What are you afraid of? Be good. Your husband will help you. Jongwoo coaxed and lied. His first day of marriage was not awkward at all. Suwon was still a little uncomfortable as it was his first day in an unfamiliar environment. She was still a little embarrassed about everything when she just started her married life. Last night, she kept asking him to put out the candles, but he refused and even said that the candles must be lit all night on the wedding night, and it would be unlucky to put them out. Suwon couldn't get away from him. In this matter, she could only close her eyes, cover her face with a quilt, and let him do whatever he wanted. After finishing, Jongwoo also undressed and lay down, holding her in his arms naturally and skillfully. He was really honest. He didn't touch her. He just held her in his arms and slept, with his hand gently stroking her back, as if he was comforting her. Soon, her eyelids became heavy, and she fell into a deep sleep. The couple's married life is very harmonious and full of sweet bubbles. But the Su family was different. When they were having breakfast in the morning, everyone seemed to have no appetite. With one person missing, everyone was concerned about Suwon's condition in the Duke's mansion. Was he used to the food? Was he used to the living quarters? Soo-yeon drank too much yesterday and embarrassed himself. When he woke up in the morning, he had stomach acid and couldn't eat anything. Sue's mother said that she was worried that Wonwon would not be used to the food in the Duke's mansion, so she decided to train a group of people and send them over to be responsible for her diet in the Duke's mansion. This girl loves spicy food. I'm afraid she won't be able to eat without chili peppers. Anyway, without Suwon, no one can enjoy their meals and work efficiently. I'm looking forward to her coming back in 3 days, so I can ask her some questions. Suwon slept until the afternoon and woke up with his stomach growling with hunger because he had not eaten much in the morning. Jongwoo had already woken up and was practicing sword in the yard. Suwon came out rubbing his eyes, casually wearing a robe. There were no male servants in the yard, only Lu Yun and Lu Ying, as well as Nanny Lu and 2 maids who were cleaning the yard. She entered the room. Jongwoo was no longer alone. The guards who had been in the yard before were now transferred to guard the door. She leaned against the door and watched him practice swordplay quietly. She vaguely remembered that 5 years ago, he was recuperating at the Su's house. Not long after he recovered from his injury, he began practicing swordplay in the yard. She was so fascinated by him at the time that she forgot that the water was still boiling in the kitchen, with mist filling the air. At that time, he smiled and said that he was in a fairyland. Applying the medicine, I had a good sleep and the soreness in my body was not so obvious, but I still felt lazy. Jongwoo had already caught a glimpse of her out of the corner of his eye, but he did not stop. Instead, he danced even harder. Suwon walked to the stone bench and sat down. There was tea, fruits, and snacks on it. A new swing had been set up in the yard. Hibiscus was planted along the wall, which was now in full bloom, filling the yard with fragrance. Suwon asked Lu Ying to go to the cat room and bring out the 2 kittens for her to see. The kitten is only 2 months old, almost 3 months old. It is still very small and white, but there is a little black hair on the tips of its ears, and its 4 paw pads are black. Because they are all little male cats, they have round faces and look chubby. They make a clip-like sound when they meow and have short limbs. They are so cute that they can make you bleed. She hugged the 2 kittens at once, and the kittens meowed and rubbed their heads against her. Suwon's attention was attracted by the kitten, and Jongwoo was left aside, so he had to put away his sword. Lu Yun was very considerate and poured him some tea. Jiangyu rarely wore white clothes, which gave people a different feeling. The kittens were so noisy and struggled to get down, so Suwon had to put them on the lawn. They immediately moved their chubby bodies and rolled on the grass. The two kittens began chasing each other and licking each other's fur. The setting sun at dusk dyed the sky orange, and the scene in the yard looked peaceful and tranquil. Suwon looked at the two kittens with a bright smile, while Jiangyu looked at her tenderly. She named the kittens one Mian Mian and the other Wan Wan. Just hearing the names sounds cute. Jiangyu asked them to prepare meals, all of which were ordered from Chenglu. The weather was nice and there was a gentle breeze outside, so we decided to eat in the yard. Looking at the dishes on the table, all of them were her favorites. She had just slept for a whole day and was very hungry. Knowing that you love spicy food, fourth brother specifically instructed us to do so. He said he would send us a few cooks in a few days to take care of your diet. He will arrange for Chenglu to send them these days. Suyun's love for Suwon was fully revealed at this moment. Even though he always bickers with Suwon, he actually cares about Suwon more than anyone else. For example, he was afraid that she wouldn't eat well at the Duke's mansion, so he asked Chenglu to prepare the food and send it to her, for fear that she wouldn't eat well. Suwon felt warm at her heart. Even though she was already married, she still received the same love and care from her family. After I get back, I must thank my fourth brother very much. After dinner, Jiangyu took her hand and took her to visit the Duke's mansion. The Duke's mansion was very large, with more than 10 or 20 courtyards of various sizes and 2 gardens, one big and one small. The small garden was at the entrance of the courtyard where they were now. This was a small garden specially opened up by Duke Jiang out of his preference for the Duke's wife, for her and her son to enjoy alone. Later, she passed away, and this small garden became the exclusive property of Duke Jiang and Jiangyu. Normally, no one was allowed to enter. Every time Ningwei came, she had to report in advance. Suwon had just gotten married, so she didn't need to accompany her elders for 3 meals a day. She only needed to be there in the morning and at noon. Of course, she could be absent under special circumstances. He took her to every place in the Duke's mansion and patiently explained to her the origin of the name of each place. Their own courtyard was named Henghuayuan. Passing by a large garden, there were many famous flowers planted there, some of which Suwon couldn't even name, and there was also a very rare black chrysanthemum. Suwon was really enlightened. She heard from Jiangyu that after the Duke retired, he spent every day at home fiddling with the flowers and plants. He also took her to feed the koi. The two of them stood under the porch. He hugged her from behind, holding fish food in his hand. Suwon picked up the fish food and sprinkled it into the porch. The koi immediately rushed together to grab the food. However, because it was night, there was only a row of lanterns lighting up the corridor, so it was naturally not as fun as during the day. After feeding for a while, Suwon didn't want to do it anymore. Jiangyu saw that she was a little disappointed, so he put his arm around her shoulders and continued walking forward. But just as I turned the corner, I bumped into a few people. After a closer look, I found that it was concubine Ningwei and her followers. Suwon had never seen the concubine of the Duke's mansion since yesterday, but he didn't expect to meet her here. Ningwei felt uncomfortable when she saw that it was the couple. Because of Jiang Zhen, she had been keeping a low profile for more than a month and only dared to come out for some fresh air at night. She heard early in the morning that the Duke had handed the power of housekeeper to Suwon. She was very unwilling to accept this. She had given so much to this family, but now it was snatched away by a woman who had only been here for less than 2 days. How could she be willing? But it doesn't matter. She can always find something to hold against her. She's just a little girl who is still wet behind the ears. Looking at the state of Jiangyu's baby, she is good-looking but useless. When Suwon saw her, he didn't need to bow. Although she was now the crown prince's wife, the servants still had to respect her as a princess. Since she is a princess, she does not have to pay respect to a concubine. On the contrary, she has to pay respect to herself. Ningwei knew that a little impatience would ruin a big plan, and although she was unwilling, she still bowed obediently. Greetings to the prince, greetings to the princess. Suwon turned her head and glanced at Jiangyu. Jiangyu had never expected to meet her here and was a little disappointed. "Madam, long time no see."
Shuwan smiled politely.
"It's been a long time since we last met. I haven't been feeling well lately, so I've been recuperating in the yard. I thought the weather was good today, so I came out for some fresh air, but I didn't expect to run into the princess." Ningwei deliberately concealed the fact that she didn't show up because she was afraid of Jiang Zhen. In fact, Su Wan really didn't know what was going on. Jiangyu was a little impatient and was about to leave by pulling Su Wan. "Let's go, it's getting late, let's go back. I'll take you to visit the places we haven't visited yet tomorrow." Ningwei didn't want to talk to them anymore. "That's right. Don't let your illness get to you. Princess, go back and rest." Su Wan was walking on the road, and only then did he know from Jiangyu that Ningwei was afraid of her grandfather, so she didn't dare to go out. The two are husband and wife now. Jiangyu no longer hides many things from Su Wan, but tells her everything about the family situation. Su Wan also knew what happened to Jiangyu's mother in the past, which was indirectly caused by Ningwei. However, Su Wan felt it was a bit strange. After all, his mother-in-law grew up in Fengyue Villa. As the daughter of her grandfather, she should know some martial arts and her physical fitness should not be so poor. Moreover, Jiangyu said that she had been ill for more than 2 years, which means it should be counted from the time Ningwei came in, and the time just fits. If he was just angry, it wouldn't make sense for him to be so angry. Although, the original owner also died of anger, but she really couldn't breathe. Being angry to death is a matter of a moment. As long as it is not a momentary loss of breath, it would not be considered anger to death. He got sick from anger, but he can recover. It's impossible that the more he recovers, the worse he gets. As long as he takes medicine every day, even if Ningwei acts like a troublemaker every day, it's impossible that the medicine will work every time, right? There is only one truth. My mother-in-law was framed. Jiangyu looked at Su Wan's brows, which were furrowed and relaxed at once, and he understood her inner struggle. When it comes to his mother, no matter how happy he was in the previous second, he would not be happy in the next second. However, he was willing to explain to Su Wan. "My mother died because she was drugged, and the person who drugged her was my own grandmother." Hearing this, Su Wan was stunned for a moment. She swallowed and could clearly feel his grip on her hand tightening a little. She initially wanted Ningwei to be the wife of the Duke's mansion, but my father didn't like her and insisted on marrying my mother. In order to make way for Ningwei, the old lady asked someone to poison my mother, causing her health to deteriorate. No matter how she nursed back to health, it was useless. Moreover, she was very vicious. The drug was not put into the daily diet, but into spices that were not easy to detect. We always thought that my mother was angry about Ningwei's existence, which made her look like this. It was not until later that we found out that all this was done by my good grandmother. But my father couldn't kill his own mother for this, right? Later, the old lady passed away, and I did it. I gave him a taste of his own medicine. No one knew why my relationship with my father was so bad all those years. They just simply thought it was because of my mother, so our father-son relationship was shallow. 2 years after Jiang Xinrou's death, Jiangyu was already 7 years old. He learned the truth at that time. At such a young age, he had the idea of killing someone for the first time. He knew that his father could not kill his mother, but he was different. He had lost his mother, so he had to make the person who made him lose his mother pay the price. He asked Dr. Sun for a colorless and odorless poison and gave it to the old lady. This poison only needs to be taken once, and does not need to be taken every day. After 3 years, the poison will naturally cause death. However, this poison is very mild, and there will be no pain when you die. You never know when you will fall asleep and never wake up again. He poisoned her to avenge his mother, but chose to let her die peacefully because of their blood relationship. Until now, Duke Jiang still doesn't know that his mother died at the hands of his son. All we know is that at that time, the old lady of the Duke's mansion, who had just turned 50, passed away peacefully in her sleep. At that time, the relationship between Duke Jiang and the old lady was extremely bad. The old lady often didn't see her son. He spent all day in the martial arts training ground, and he was unwilling to make Ning Wei his legal wife. It was during this period that Jiang Yu personally tricked the old lady into drinking the poison soup. The old lady favors boys over girls. Jiang Yu has been smart since he was a child and is very delicate. Although the old lady doesn't like Shinro, she has no resentment towards her grandson. So it was very easy for Jiang Yu to get close to her. To this day, he still does not regret what he did. The two of them sat on the swing in the yard. She leaned in his arms and listened to him talk about this. Suddenly, a tear fell on the back of her hand. Su-won's heart tightened and she looked up at him. Under the moonlight, his eyes were misty, and Su-won felt very distressed. Wan, do you think what I did was right? I killed my grandmother with my own hands. Jiang Yu looked at her with red eyes. Everyone in the yard was sent away, so there was no fear that anyone would hear their conversation. Jiang Yu also felt uncomfortable. As he grew older, he became more conflicted. On one side is his dearest and most loving mother, and on the other side is his blood-related grandmother, who is usually nice to him. However, in order to avenge his mother, he poisoned his own grandmother. Whenever he thought about this, he felt as if his heart was being cut by a knife. Is it wrong or not? If I give you another chance to choose, will you still do the same? Su-won asked, reaching out and touching his face. Jiang Yu looked at her without hesitation. If I had to choose again, I think I would still do it the same way. Then what are you still struggling with? Some things, since you have already done them, even you don't regret it. Why can't you let it go? It's just a life for a life. Su-won could understand him very well. When you find out that your loved ones have done something irreparable behind your back, but you are unable to do it due to blood ties, standing in the position of Duke Jiang, do you really want him to kill his own mother with his own hands? Therefore, it is understandable that Jiang Yu would do this. However, there was still a hurdle in his heart that he couldn't get over, so after all these years, he didn't want to return to this home that suffocated him. Then, do you think I'm a scary person? Jiang Yu hugged her tightly, leaned on her shoulders, and asked softly. He was actually very afraid that his wife would think he was a terrible person because of this, and he was very nervous. Upon hearing this, Su-won twisted his waist, and Jiang Yu hissed in cooperation. We are husband and wife, we prosper together, and we suffer together. Why should I be afraid of you? Besides, if I were you, no matter who hurt my loved ones, I would do whatever it takes to get them back. If I were you, I would probably make the same choice as you. When he heard Su-won say that, and he just held her face and kissed her. Su-won was stunned by his sudden kiss. When she came to her senses, he had already pried open her teeth and started kissing her deeply. In this regard, he seemed to be self-taught. Before long, Su-won felt that all the strength in his body had been drained away by him, and tears welled up in his eyes. Wan, can we move out quickly? Jiang Yu really didn't want to stay in the Duke's mansion. Su-won nodded, but always remembered Su's mother's instructions. Okay, wait until after this year, okay? Okay, I'll do as you say. Only half a year, Jiang Yu can wait. As long as she is by his side, half a year is not too long. He continued to kiss her, and Su-won was dizzy from his kiss. Now that they are married, Jiang Yu can finally do whatever he wants, kiss however he wants, and cling as close as he wants. But Jiang Yu didn't do anything else to her. At most, he just kissed her and hugged her. She had been tormented quite a bit these past 2 days, so he wanted to let her rest for a few days. On the second morning at the Duke's mansion, the butler took Su-won to the accounting office. This was Su-won's own request. Since she held the housekeeper's key, she had to manage the Duke's mansion well. She and Jiang Yu had discussed it and decided that the whole family would move to the mansion next to the Su mansion. As for Ningwei, she would stay in the old Duke's mansion with her son. As for the emperor, now that the Duke's mansion has handed over the military power, he will definitely let them move to wherever they want. It's just a matter of changing the mansion, which is not excessive. While she had free time, she took a good look at the accounts of the Duke's mansion to see how much the mansion spent every month. However, these account books had already been cleared by the housekeeper before, and they were all in order, so there was nothing wrong. However, Suwon discovered that when Ningwei was the housekeeper, the expenses of her courtyard and Jiang Yan's courtyard were particularly high. The expenditures are basically real money. It can be seen that Ningwei did not treat herself badly at all during her time as the head of the family. Even though she no longer has the power to be the head of the family, Suwon made a rough estimate and found that she must have amassed a lot of property. Before, when she went out, she dressed according to the standards of a duke's wife, so it was impossible for her to be without money. But it would certainly not be easy to force her to return the money for no reason. My father-in-law must be aware of this, but he didn't say anything, which means he didn't intend to do anything too drastic. Just like Ningwei said, even if she had no credit, she had worked hard over the years, so no one cared about her making money. Jiang Yu did not disturb her from looking at the account book, but went to accompany his grandfather. Only then did she have time to spend the whole morning in the accounting office. Finally, he came to pick him up for lunch before coming out of the accounting office. With Duke Jiang and my grandfather at noon, and the four of them looked very harmonious. Grandfather will be returning to Fengyue Villa in a month or so. During this time, Jiang Yu and Suwon will try to spend more time with him. In the afternoon, Madame Lu took her to meet all the servants in the mansion, from the third-class maids who swept the house to the first-class maids who served the masters personally, as well as the servants who guarded the house, those who managed the gardening flowers and plants, and the cooks and servants in the kitchen, a total of nearly 60 people. Such a big mansion would cost a lot of money in a month. This is much more complicated than the Su family. Although the Su family has many people, they also have a lot of income from various sources. The elder brothers receive a salary every month, and the second, fourth, and fifth brothers also pay money into the account every month. But the Duke's mansion is supported only by the Duke's fief. Of course, the Duke's mansion must have private property, otherwise it would not be enough to support such a large mansion. I heard from Jiang Yu that the Duke's mansion has a horse farm and more than a dozen shops for rent, and the rent collected every month is not small. However, there should be more than just these properties, otherwise it would be impossible to offer such a generous betrothal gift. Suwon spent the whole day looking at the account books and identifying the servants, and his life was quite fulfilling. Tomorrow is the third day since she returned to her parents' home, and Aunt Lu has already prepared a gift for her. To his return these 3 days, getting up early and waiting at the door. The two of them were relatively low-key. They got on a carriage, brought the gifts, and returned. The servant who was arranged to watch at the door of the Su family saw that the son-in-law and the princess had returned, and immediately went back to report. The entire Su family came out together and came to the door to pick up Suwon and Jiang Yu. Suwon was wearing a red casual skirt today, and Jiang Yu was also wearing a robe of the same color as her. The two looked very festive and well-matched. Getting off the carriage, Jiang Yu held her waist and carried her down. The loving look on their face made Su's mother very happy. She and her husband looked at each other and smiled with satisfaction. "Dad, Mom, my daughter is back." After getting off the carriage, Suwon held up her skirt and went up the stairs, giving her mother a big hug. "Look at you. You're already married, but you're still acting like a little girl. You're not steady at all. There's nothing to be afraid of. Wanwan will always be a little girl in our hearts."
Father supported Suwon.
Suwon laughed and then looked at his brothers. They were all standing by. The eldest brother was supporting his eldest sister-in-law. Now his sister-in-law was 3 months pregnant and the fetus was stable, but his eldest brother still put her at the center of his attention. Whenever he was around, he would support her. Suwon walked up to her and hugged her sister-in-law, then reached out and touched her belly. "Is my little nephew well behaved?" Shen Qingli heard this and smiled. "He's still young, but he's been very well behaved recently. He finally stopped bothering me and can eat in peace." Shen Qingli touched her belly, her face filled with happiness and her whole body radiating the glow of motherhood. Sun Linger is going to get married with her second brother in 10 days. Normally, they are not allowed to see each other during this period, but Suwon is her best sister, and she is to come and see Suwon no matter what. Suwon then gave her a hug, and then gave Luo Shiju a hug. They also noticed the difference in Suwon. She had her hair tied up in a bun like a woman, but her eyes still had the cuteness of a little girl. Her complexion had become rosy, and her eyes were watery and sparkling. It was obvious that she was nourished by love and that her married life was happy. They believed that Jiangyu would definitely spoil her to the sky. After getting married, Suwon's every move became more charming, especially when she smiled. Her cheeks were slightly rosy, making her even more beautiful and making people unable to take their eyes off her. Suwon has become a married woman, and her brothers are filled with emotion. The crowd surrounded Suwon and entered the mansion. Fireworks were set off outside the door, and the crackling sound lasted for a long time. After returning, Jiangyu was taken away by his brothers, while Suwon had a private chat with Xin Qingli, Sun Linge, Luo Shizhu, and others. Girls are together, they also like to talk about embarrassing topics. Especially Sun Linge, she was the most straightforward and outspoken, and even asked Prince Su Wanjiang if he was okay and whether he needed any herbal medicine. Su Wan glared at her and retorted, "You ask me, you will know in 10 days. As for your medicinal food, I'll see if my second brother needs it. Just keep it for him." Sun Linger's face turned red, and she reached out to tickle Su Wan's skin. Su Wan laughed until tears came out. Luo Shizhu quickly helped Xin Qingli hide away as she was pregnant. Among the 4 girls, Luo Shizhu was the only one who was as innocent as a blank sheet of paper. She blushed when she heard them talking about this. Jiangyu was sitting at a tea table, with his brothers-in-law sitting beside him and opposite him. He felt a sense of oppression. The pressure is even greater than going to the battlefield. He could only keep drinking tea and answer whatever his brothers asked. The eldest brother Su Jing asked him, "Are you used to having Wanwan come to your house?" The second brother Su Mu asked him, "Wanwan seems to have lost some weight. Is it because she didn't eat well?" "That's impossible. I sent someone to deliver food to her house. They were all her favorite dishes. It's impossible that she didn't eat well." Upon hearing this, Su Yun immediately refuted, saying that it couldn't be because of the food. "Maybe it's because of the clothes you're wearing, so you look thinner." "Second brother, you're worrying too much. It's only been a few days?" Su Chen thought, it's only been 2 or 3 days since they last saw each other, so it's impossible for her to lose weight so quickly, right? So it must be because of the clothes. Until Sui said, "Jiangyu, Wanwan is still young after all. You should be more restrained." Jiangyu choked to death on his tea after hearing this. "No, I swear to God. He has been refraining from touching her these past 2 days. So how can he be said to be lacking in self-control?" The 5th brother was as sharp as ever. All the brothers were looking at him. He relaxed for a long time before wiping the corners of his mouth with a handkerchief and explaining, "Don't worry, brothers. I know my limits." How does this bring us to the issue of moderation? Afterwards, his brothers gave him a series of instructions. Wanwan's temper may seem mild, but she is actually stubborn and has a bit of a temper. You should give in to her more often. Wanwan likes to eat sweets and ice cream at night. You should persuade her to stop doing that. It's bad for her health. Don't do that. Wanwan likes to sleep in, so she may not be able to get up too early in the morning. I wonder if your family has a rule of visiting parents in the morning and evening? I have already selected a group of chefs and will send them to your house on a chosen day. Leave your food to them in the future. I am not confident in the chefs in your house. The main reason is that your concubine does not look like a good person. I am afraid that she will harm Suwan. I finished drawing the portrait of Wanwan. Remember to bring it to her later to see if she's satisfied with it. If not, there's still time to make some changes. The brothers really care about Suwan. This heavy burden of care weighs on Jiangyu, making him feel a little breathless. "Brother, Wanwan is my wife now, so I naturally tolerate her temper. Moreover, Wanwan has a very good temper. To me, she doesn't have a bad temper at all. And second brother, I don't allow her to eat too many sweets and iced foods at night. I will definitely supervise her and take good care of her body. Third brother, there is no rule of morning and evening visits in our family. Wanwan can sleep until she wakes up naturally every day. She is now the most distinguished hostess of the Duke's mansion. No one dares to tell her what to do. My father, Duke Jiang, is a rough man and doesn't care about these false formalities.
Just go with the flow.
Fourth brother, I have ordered someone to open a small kitchen. From now on, Wanwan's 3 meals a day will be prepared by the cook arranged by fourth brother. Outsiders will not be allowed to interfere. Also, thank you fifth brother for drawing the portrait of Wanwan. We trust your painting skills. Thank you for your hard work. Jiangyu answered their questions one by one, trying his best to put their minds at ease. All problems are not problems. If there's a problem, solve it. Jiangyu's attitude and answers were very satisfying, and the brothers nodded in satisfaction. Jiangyu said that he was under a lot of pressure. With so many brothers-in-law, he felt very oppressive. Suwon returned home today, and the whole family was particularly happy. During lunch, Sue's mother saw that her son-in-law was so attentive, picking up dishes for her and serving soup herself, which made her mother feel more relieved. In the afternoon, I went to the mansion next door to take a look. It was about the same size as the Su mansion and had been renovated. There was also a door connecting the two mansions. When Suwon moved in next year, he would be able to see his family every day. However, the two houses are too big when placed next to each other. One would have to take a sedan chair to go back and forth, and it would take a long time to walk there. After dinner in the evening, the two returned to Duke Zhang's mansion. In the past 6 months, Suwon had probably met his family less often. Next time I will wait until my second brother gets married before going back. His and Sunlinger's wedding would not be a grand one. They would just invite some familiar friends and relatives from both families. My uncle and his family will not go back until Su Mu's wedding is over. The wedding will be held in the mansion prepared for Sunlinger before. The two mansions are very close to each other, and Dr. Sun does not want too many people to know his identity. Because Su Mu's identity as a little miracle doctor was exposed, most of the numerous messages sent to and from the Su residents every day were asking Su Mu to come out and provide medical treatment. However, Su Mu would not treat ordinary illnesses unless the cases were challenging. For example, during the hunting trip at Junshan, the scar on the face of the daughter with a birthmark miraculously faded after a series of diagnosis and treatment by him. The reputation of the young miracle doctor Su Mu became even greater. In the evening, the two of them sat in the carriage returning to the Duke's mansion. Suwon asked Jiangyu what his brothers had said to him and why he had been gone for so long. Jiangyu exaggerated the oppression he had inflicted on him by his brothers and told Suwon about it. As a result, Suwon was made to laugh at himself, but at the same time, he felt extremely proud. It's great. This is the feeling of having a mother's family and being confident, so she pinched Jiangyu's face and threatened, "Hear me, be nice to me, or my 5 brothers will slap you to death with 1 big slap each." No! When Suwon thought of the scene, he laughed even more wildly. Jiangyu was helpless, but he enjoyed it. When the two returned home, they first went to pay their respects to their father-in-law and grandfather. The two elders had been getting along quite harmoniously recently, mainly because there were no annoying people disturbing them. Although the two of them don't talk much and play their own games, this way of getting along is already very good compared to 20 years ago. Are you used to living at home, princess? If there is anything you are not used to, please inform Aunt Lu in time to arrange it for you. You have the final say over everything in the mansion now. You can do whatever you want. If that brat Jiangyu bullies you, just tell me. I will support you and give him a good beating. Took the opportunity of Suwon coming to pay her respects to him to ask her something. As he spoke, he glared at Jiangyu. Jiangyu's mother passed away early, and as a father-in-law, there are many things that he is not comfortable saying, but he still needs to show the proper concern. Father, I am doing fine. The servants in the mansion are very attentive to me. They provide me with food, clothing, shelter, and transportation according to my preferences. I have nothing to lack. As for the prince, don't worry. If he dares to treat me badly, I will definitely report him. I will not only report him to you, but also to my grandfather. In front of his elders, Suwon is always at ease and can make the atmosphere very relaxed. No, the grandfather beside him immediately laughed heartily upon hearing this. Ha 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 ha, little girl, go ahead and complain. I'll break this kid's legs. Jiangyu was very helpless. He had now become a survivor at the bottom of the food chain, right? Whether in the Su mansion or in the Duke's mansion, he is the one with the lowest presence. However, he did not feel unhappy. Instead, he felt that this was particularly good, and he wished they would all favor Su-won. The only sound left in the hall was his grandfather's laughter. Seeing the old man laugh, Su-won also laughed. After laughing, my grandfather continued, "I am already old, and I don't know how many years I have left to live. Now I have only one unfulfilled wish." Upon hearing this, Su-won immediately looked at him with clear eyes and asked, "What unfulfilled wishes does Grandpa have?" At this moment, she really didn't think much about it. On the contrary, Jong-yu's mouth corners curled up. "This wish still depends on you to fulfill. I want to have a great-grandson soon." Upon hearing this, Su-won was stunned for a moment, then laughed awkwardly. "So that's it." Oh, she should have reacted earlier. When people get old, their wishes are just to watch their younger generations get married and have children. This is exactly what I wish for. It would be great if the Duke's mansion could have a little prince or a little county lady as soon as possible. Duke Jeong also took the opportunity to urge them to do so, saying that this opportunity cannot be wasted. The daughter of the Duke's son can be granted the title of county princess, and she will be a person of noble status from birth. But Su-won felt very embarrassed. They had only been married for a few days, and already the baby was being induced. The pressure was huge. But Jong-yu is now 24 years old, and others of his age have already become fathers, so he is indeed anxious. She would not deliberately take precautions. She would just let the child's words take their own course. No matter when they came, she would always be ready to be a mother. Unexpectedly, after Jong-yu and she returned to the yard to wash up, he used this excuse to pounce on her. Under the pretext that he also wanted to be a father, he hoped that Su-won would give him a daughter. Between husband and wife, at first, are somewhat uncomfortable due to experience, but after you have recovered, only pleasure remains. However, Jong-yu's physical strength is so good that he can really do some hard work. In the middle of the night, Su-won crawled to the bedside, but was dragged back by the feet and hugged by the waist. Su-won couldn't resist and kept cursing. Soon, it was the day of Su-mu's wedding. His family invited several neighbors to the wedding banquet, and many of Dr. Sun's friends also came. On weekdays, there were several officials' families who came and went with the Su mansion, and there were only about a dozen tables in total. Early in the morning, Su-mu led the wedding team to pick up Sun Linger. Her wedding dress was made by Grandma Yi herself. Because it was a small wedding, Dr. Sun didn't have too many requirements. Not long after their granddaughter left home, the old couple came to the Su mansion. Comes for the wedding, Dr. Sun hopes that he can sit in the hall and fulfill his wish. Sun Linger was adopted by him, and they were not related by blood, but he had always treated her as his own granddaughter and raised her up over the years. Teach her how to be a good person, teach her medical skills, and now I also want to see her marry the man of her dreams. What's even more coincidental is that this grandson-in-law happens to be his only disciple, and his character and appearance are both top-notch. Moreover, Su-mu is very similar to him in many ways. If he inherits his true skills, he will be able to take good care of his granddaughter. The Su family are all kind people, which is obvious to all. If a child marries into their family as a daughter-in-law, he will only enjoy the happiness. The night before, Su-won brought Jong-yu back to the Su mansion for his second brother and sister-in-law's wedding the next day. This was the third happy event held by the Su family this year. If we were to talk about the most festive family in Kyoto, it would be the Su family. Good things keep happening one after another, and the joy cannot be stopped. Dressed in red makeup is also extremely beautiful. Perhaps her outfit is not as solemn and gorgeous as Su-won and the others, but this marriage is the result of her own efforts. As long as she could marry Su-mu, she would be satisfied. From then on, living a good life was more important to them than anything else. Attending the ceremony was Jacheng. Her legs are now fully healed, and her relationship with Su-chen is becoming more and more natural. Whenever Su-chen had time, he would go to Prince Yang's mansion to see her and bring her lots of delicious cakes and new dishes from Chunglu. At the beginning, when the two were together, Su-chin was always embarrassed and blushed when he spoke. But after doing it more often, they got along more naturally. At Jiaxing's initiative, he would also teach her how to draw the bow so that the power of the bow and arrow could be maximized. He would also play pot-to-pot with her, and he would deliberately let her win. At that time, Jiaxing would always be so happy that he was at a loss, with a bright and smiling face. And every time he saw her smile, Su-chin felt his heart become incredibly soft. Watching Su-mu and Sun Linger getting married, Jiaxing looked at Su-chin, who was standing opposite her, and Su-chin was also looking at her. She was thinking the next one should be their wedding, right? Prince Xiang has not found a chance to confess to His Majesty yet. His Majesty has been in a bad mood recently because the Crown Prince is in a bad condition in the Eastern Palace. I heard that he often coughs up blood and is in poor spirits. He spends most of his time lying on the couch. As a result, the Emperor has been very upset recently and is always angry for no reason. He doesn't dare to offend anyone, so this matter can only be postponed again and again. After Su-mu and Sun Linger paid homage to heaven and earth, Su Linger was sent to the bridal chamber. Today, Su-mu did not have to worry about being forced to drink, because those who came to drink were all family members, and at most only his brothers would let him have a few drinks. Su-wan and the others went to the bridal chamber together to accompany Sun Linger. Sun Linger, who is usually playful, was unusually reserved today. She sat obediently and smiled very subtly. Everyone joked with her that if she couldn't hold it up, she should just give up, since no one would laugh at her anyway. Sun Linger was unmoved. Just when everyone thought she was serious, Sun Linger finally couldn't help showing her true colors and started laughing. I'm so happy and excited.
I am finally marrying Sumu.
Wanwan, when will you call me sister-in-law? Su-won has always regarded her as his second sister-in-law, but he had never called her that before they got married. Now he can finally call her that. She is the heroine today, so of course Su-won can do whatever she wants. Holding her arm, he kept calling her second sister-in-law all the time. Then, she looked at Jiaxing and Luo Shiju and joked, "How about it? Do you two want to hear me call you third sister-in-law and fifth sister-in-law in advance?" Jiaxing nodded calmly, which was in line with her personality. "Okay, call me and I'll listen." Luo Shiju was as expected and felt embarrassed, too ashamed to look at anyone. Oh no, don't talk nonsense. She and Su-yi are still in the most exciting ambiguous period, and it is understandable that they have not confirmed their relationship. Su-mu's wedding night went particularly smoothly. No one forced him to drink, so he didn't get drunk. The two of them had been together for several years, and except for the fact that the window paper had not been broken, they were actually very close. Therefore, when the two of them were intimate, it was particularly natural. Although Su-mu is very serious and self-disciplined during the day, he sometimes loses control when facing his beloved woman. The two of them got what they wanted, and the lovers finally got married. From then on, Sun Linger became the daughter-in-law of the Su family and Su-won's second sister-in-law. A major event in Dr. Sun's life has come to an end. He sees that the granddaughter he raised has finally found a reliable home and can rest in peace after 100 years. In the evening, Jiaxing came out of Sun Linger's new room and happened to meet Su-chen, who came to look for her. Su-chen was responsible for sending her back to Prince Xiang's mansion safely, which was the promise he had made to Prince Xiang. Seeing Su-chen coming towards him, Jiaxing was very happy. He trotted up to him and looked up at him. "Su-chen, are you here to see me?" Su-chen smiled and nodded. "Well, I'll take you back to the palace. It's getting late." Jiaxing smiled brightly, put his hands behind his back, and tilted his head to look at him. She wanted to tease him again. "Su-chen, I'm tired today. My feet hurt so much that I don't want to walk anymore." Upon hearing this, Su-chen pursed his lips and seemed to really believe it. But in fact, she accompanied the bride for a whole day and did not go anywhere, but someone was willing to accommodate her. "What should we do? Do you want me to carry the princess on my back?" Unexpectedly, he got the idea quickly this time and hit the nail on the head for Jiaxing. Su-chen had held her hand and hugged her, but he had never carried her on his back. So, Jiaxing nodded. Well, it's not impossible. Seeing this, Su Chen suddenly laughed. He seemed to understand her ulterior motives, so he went to her and half knelt in front of her in the morning. Come on up, I'll carry you. Jiaqing happily lay on his back, feeling Su Chen carrying him steadily, even bouncing him around. Hold tight, my princess, let's go. Su Chen likes being with Jiaqing very much. Although she always likes to tease him, he just can't help but be moved. Jiaqing hugged his neck from behind. Along the way, they met many servants and maids. They all respectfully called him the third young master. They did not dare to look around casually and kept their heads down, until a familiar-looking maid came towards him, holding some food in her hands, and seemed to be delivering somewhere. Mimi saw Su Chen from a distance. He was carrying a girl with a bright smile on his back. She recognized this girl. She was the princess of Prince Yang's mansion and was of noble status. It seems that Su Chen likes this princess very much, and this princess also likes Su Chen very much, and the two seem to be in love with each other. In the past, she always hid in the dark and watched him secretly. She didn't dare to come out and disturb him. She was also afraid that he would always have a cold face towards her. She didn't like to see his cold face. This time was no exception. She lowered her head in panic and made way for them to pass. As expected, Su Chen did not recognize her. He was concentrating on talking to the girl on his back. The warm smile on his face was something she had never seen before. When they walked to the front, Mimi looked up and just happened to see the princess kissing him on the face. Su Chen's expression could not be seen, but he was obviously stunned and paused for a moment, then continued to walk with the princess on his back. At that moment, her heart seemed to have fallen into an ice cellar. She thought that maybe he had always treated her differently, otherwise he would not have brought her back home and taken good care of her. She also knew that her status was not worthy of him, and it was a blessing to have a place to live out the rest of her life. It was better than being like her father and brother, with their bodies hung on the city gate and despised by the people. She regarded him as the only person she wanted to be close to in this strange country. She had the mark of a servant on her body and was absolutely not worthy of him. She also thought that General Su would have to marry one day, and perhaps she could accept this fact calmly. But now that I have seen with my own eyes that he is attracted to a girl, my heart is still in unbearable pain, as if I were falling into an ice cellar. By the time General Su gets married, even being able to secretly look at him will probably be a luxury for me. The kitchen was very busy today, and her aunt couldn't find anyone to help, so she made an exception and asked her to go out to the backyard to deliver food. She didn't expect to see such a scene, which forced her to face reality. In the carriage, Su Chen hugged Jiaqing and kissed her passionately. He pressed her against the wall of the carriage, put his arms around her waist, and kissed her passionately. He was not very good at kissing and didn't know how to be gentle, so he just sucked her lips roughly. Jiaqing could hardly breathe. His hands tightly grasped the clothes on his chest, crumpling them into a ball. She wanted to tease him, so she took the initiative to kiss his lips. She was originally planning to just touch him lightly, but she didn't expect the man to catch her and kiss her deeply. The atmosphere in the carriage was extremely ambiguous. She was very courageous, but at the moment she was also very obedient and allowed him to take what he wanted. Su Chen just had a primitive reaction, out of desperation. She leaned on him, gasping for breath, and she couldn't calm down for a long time. If she hadn't almost suffocated, he would have been reluctant to let her go. When they arrived at Prince Yang's mansion, Su Chen carried her out of the carriage. Jiaqing was still normal at this time, but her lips were slightly red and swollen. Su Chen watched her go in. When the door was closed and he returned to the carriage, the ambiguous atmosphere was still lingering. He suddenly felt his heart beating faster. He actually kissed her just now and was so crazy. As for Jiaqing, her legs suddenly went limp after entering the room, but fortunately the maid supported her. The maid looked at her swollen lips, realized something, and felt a little embarrassed. A trance, Jiaqing could still vaguely feel the irresistible masculine scent enveloping him. Su Chen is very manly. After all, he is a general and has a masculine air about him. You could also say that he has a high level of hormones. But she didn't think this smell was bad. Instead, it made her feel at ease. She felt that as long as she relied on him, all problems could be solved and no one could hurt her. Does this count as a step forward in our relationship? I still remember that when it was over, he held me in his arms and asked me in a hoarse voice when her father would ask the emperor to grant the marriage. It seemed that he couldn't wait to take her home. After Su Mu and Sun Linger's wedding, Sun Linger finally changed her way of addressing them when serving tea and started calling Su's father and Su's mother, father and mother. Nowadays, the girls who used to appear in the Su family have all tied their hair into a bun, changing their previous girlish looks and becoming more stable. Also seemed to be going very smoothly. As he and Luo Shiju spent more time together, their feelings for each other grew deeper. The two of them only need to stay together quietly for a whole afternoon, even without saying a word, giving people a feeling of peace and tranquility. He painted while she ground ink and mixed dyes for him. However, such peaceful days did not last for a few days, and bad news came from the East Palace. The prince fell into a coma after vomiting blood this morning, and the imperial physician was helpless. In desperation, someone from the East Palace came to ask Su Mu to come out of retirement. Due to the royal dignity, Su Mu took his medicine box and equipment and went to the East Palace. He did not return for 3 days. The Su family was very anxious. Treating the prince this time was different from treating other people. If they made a mistake and the prince couldn't get up, the emperor's wrath would fall on him, and that was no joke. Sun Linger was the most anxious. She and Su Mu had just gotten married and didn't want anything to happen to them. However, with the Su family's ability, it is indeed a bit difficult to find out the situation in the Eastern Palace. In desperation, they had to write a letter to the Duke's mansion to see if Su Wan could find a way to find out the situation in the Eastern Palace. The affairs of the Eastern Palace have been widely discussed in Kyoto these past few days. It just so happened that the Duke went to visit the Eastern Palace today and found out some news. In the past few days in the East Palace, Su Mu worked almost non-stop to prolong the life of the prince. He didn't get enough rest, and the bruises under his eyes and the red bloodshot in his eyes showed how tired he was at the moment. The prince is already over 30 years old and is a rare political talent. People only sigh that the prince is virtue, but no fortune, and cannot handle this tremendous luck. However, during his reign, he treated the wise and the humble with respect, opened up a path to the imperial examinations for poor students all over the world, and in his early years, he joined forces with the Ministry of Personnel to fight against bribery, which prevented many people who wanted to cheat from gaining more benefits from their efforts. Therefore, most of the outstanding people in the court who came from the Hanlin Academy came from humble backgrounds. He advocated benevolent governance and followed his father's philosophy, hoping that in the future the country would be able to leave doors unlocked at night. When a dynasty prospered to a certain extent, the people would have lived a good life. At that time, everyone would have enough food and drink, gold and silver. Even at night, the doors of their homes would be open and no one would worry about the family finances. This is called leaving doors unlocked at night. However, despite such great ambitions, he was not blessed with much luck and reached the point of exhaustion at a young age. Otherwise, with such a good prince like him, what would be the point of the other princes? There is no need for anyone to argue. After all, the prince's talent and reputation are there, and he is what everyone wants. The emperor specially suspended court for 2 days and stayed in the East Palace for 2 consecutive days, which shows his regret and love for the prince. Su Mu managed to protect the prince's heart with great difficulty, allowing him to survive temporarily. He then used a variety of precious herbs to keep him alive and clear-headed for a moment. The reason why the prince was seriously ill had also been found out. It was not just because of his poor health. Although he was born prematurely, his upbringing was quite good. Tampered with his diet, taking advantage of the principle of mutual promotion and mutual restraint between foods, and gradually eroded the prince's vitality. The person behind the scenes must have a special understanding of the uses of various ingredients, mastered the characteristics of each ingredient, and constantly switched them, confusing the imperial physician's judgment. He did not just use one kind of pharmacology, but several kinds in rotation. However, these were nothing to Su Mu, as he also understood the pharmacology of the interactions between foods. And the person behind the scenes was so bold that he even dared to mess with the food in front of him, and he was discovered by him in no time. The emperor immediately ordered the East Palace to be sealed off, and then took control of all the servants and palace maids serving them, and began to interrogate them one by one, determined to find out the mastermind behind the incident. As for the prince, after several days of acupuncture and medicine given by Su Mu, he was finally able to survive temporarily. As soon as he woke up, the emperor rushed to see him. The prince had become so thin that he no longer looked as handsome and elegant as before. His eye sockets were sunken, and he seemed to be terminally ill. He knew that he didn't have much time left, but he still had no resentment. The emperor raised him as his favorite son. Once upon a time, he wanted to entrust the country to him. But in his current body, he has no chance of becoming emperor. However, the emperor still retains his position as crown prince, hoping that one day he will get better. Su Mu said bluntly that the prince was already beyond redemption, and asked His Majesty to make final mental preparations and say whatever he wanted to say quickly. Su Mu Chai was not afraid that his words would be treasonous and cause the emperor's wrath. The prince's fate had already been determined. At first, everyone thought he had a severe cough, and the entire imperial hospital could not find out that he had been suffering from food poisoning for a long time. In ancient times, it was difficult to identify the cause of food poisoning. It was not like ordinary poisons that could be tested with silver needles. It was just by chance that Su Mu saw a palace servant carrying in a bowl of rotten vegetable porridge, and only then did he realize that there was such a mystery in it. Otherwise, he would not have been able to diagnose the real reason why the prince was seriously ill. His Majesty had already accepted this reality. After a long silence, he waved his hand for Su Mu to leave and asked someone to arrange a room for him to rest. After Su Mu left, the queen on the side was already in tears. The third Prince Morong Rue was also there to comfort her, but he kept his head down and his expression could not be seen. The person lying inside was his biological brother. They were both descendants of the queen, so naturally he would not be absent from such an occasion today. The afternoon, the prince woke up and the emperor went to see him immediately, but the prince asked his father to go in alone because he had something to say to him. The queen, the biological mother, could only wait outside. She didn't know where the third prince had gone, but she had no intention of looking for him now. She just wanted to see her eldest son again. After closing the door, the emperor walked over to the prince and sat down. "Minner, how are you feeling? I asked a little doctor to come and treat you. Do you know that someone tampered with your food, and that's why you are like this now?" The emperor now regretted very much why he had not asked the little miracle doctor to come and see him earlier. If it could be discovered earlier, maybe. However, the prince already knew that he would have no tomorrow, so he smiled with relief. "Father, what's the point of saying all this now? I know my own health, and I only regret that I can no longer share your worries. I have been sick for these years, and I have never shared even a little bit of your worries. And you always ask me to worry about you. I am an unfilial son." The prince has always been like this, very gentle to everyone. Even at this time, he has never felt any resentment, and is truly like the white moonlight. "Minner, I don't blame you. You are a good child, and the son I value most in my heart. You were always like that, and you are still like that now." Crown Prince Morong Min was both the legitimate son and the eldest son, so it was legitimate for him to be the crown prince. Since birth, he had to carry a heavier burden than others and had a lot to learn. When his other brothers were still in their mother's arms, he had already picked up a pen and started writing, studying the 4 books and 5 classics.
"Don't worry, Minner.
I will definitely find out who is behind this and avenge you. This person is so cruel, I will cut him into pieces to vent my anger." In the prince's eyes, how could he be willing to accept that his most beloved child, the one with the most imperial talent, had been cruelly harmed like this? Unexpectedly, Morong Min reached out and pressed the back of his hand. Even covered with such a thick quilt, his hands were still cold. "Father, There is no need to dwell on the dark past. I have come this far and do not want to cause any more trouble after my death. I do not want to see bloodshed. I only want to come alone and leave with a clean conscience. After my death, you do not need to investigate this matter. I do not ask for much. I only hope that after my death, the concubines of the Eastern Palace can be exempted from the system of being buried alive with the dead, and all of them can be moved to Wanfu Temple to practice for 3 years to pray for my soul. After that, they will be free. Some of them are in their prime, and I do not want such vibrant lives to be destroyed in my hands. I hope Father will agree. Until his death, Murong-min still maintained a kind heart and sought ways out for those around him. But they are already wives of the royal family. Even if they survive, they cannot remarry. What will happen if they don't accompany you? The emperor's ideas are still old-fashioned and traditional. If he dies in the future, many concubines who have no children will inevitably be buried with him. Father, I have few wishes, and this is one of them. Please agree to it. Murong-min insisted. The emperor had no choice but to nod and agree. According to ancestral rules, when the crown prince dies, all the concubines who have no children, except the crown princess, must be buried with him. This time, maybe it will be the last conversation between father and son. The prince is in a state of last breath, so he can still say a few words to him. The emperor knew that he could not delay any longer, so he asked him about the issue of appointing a crown prince, wanting to hear his opinion on which of his 6 younger brothers had the ability to become the crown prince. The prince used his last moments of clarity to speak out his inner thoughts. My second brother is kind and honest, but he is timid and cowardly. Although my third brother and I are brothers from the same mother, the country is not to be trifled with. He has always had a bad temper and is willful. He is incapable of taking important responsibilities. It would be best for him to be an idle prince in the future. The fourth prince has never cared about state affairs. He only has eyes for romance. He also relies on his status to suppress the people. His character is obvious to all the ministers, and there is no point in saying anything more. Although the fifth royal brother pursued a life of leisure and freedom in the early days and did not show off, but I have discovered that he has been secretly in close contact with many ministers in the past 2 years, and the ambition in his eyes has been revealed. It is certainly a good thing to be ambitious, but if a person like him sits in a high position, I am afraid that there will be no place for the other brothers in the future. The sixth prince's mother's family is not prominent, his talent is mediocre, and he has neither merits nor faults. But if he is made the crown prince, I am afraid that the ministers will find it difficult to accept. Murong-min had talked all along and rejected almost everyone, and now only the seventh Prince Murong-hwai was left. The emperor naturally understood what he meant. Minner intends to nominate the seventh brother as the crown prince? Murong-min nodded to show his agreement. He was going to die anyway, so he could just say whatever he wanted. Why does Minner like the seventh brother? Is there a reason? In fact, the emperor had already made up his mind, but he still wanted to hear the prince's opinion. The prince started coughing and his face turned red. The emperor immediately asked someone to bring him some hot tea to help him calm down. Minner, don't be impatient. Go slowly. How could Murong-min not be anxious? He was eager to tell his father what he had seen and known, and wanted to share his father's final worries before he died. Father, I have been secretly observing my seventh brother for a long time. When he was feeling well a few days ago, I met him more than once and talked with him. I found that my seventh brother has a broad vision and cares about the world. Although he acted absurdly in his early years, his military talents are obvious to all. He never kills innocent people, nor does he use his status to suppress the military and civilians. On the contrary, he can get along well with the military and civilians. In the case of corruption, he and the fifth brother were equally guilty, but the fifth brother acted harshly and rudely, often using force and status to suppress others, while he convinced the public with his real talent and hard work and always produced solid evidence. What our Jin country needs is always an emperor who is dedicated to the people, not an emperor who will do anything to achieve his goals. Although the fifth brother also has certain talents, he is too violent. Murong-min was right. If Murong-shung came to power, he would inevitably force the rest of his brothers into a dead end in order to eliminate dissidents and avoid future troubles. His Majesty was a prince. He had more than a dozen brothers around him. They fought endlessly for the throne. Gradually, his brothers died from various accidents and provocations, and he also emerged from the dire straits. Isn't it a kind of protection for yourself to pretend to be a foolish and wicked person at the beginning? He chose to jump out and make a splash at the right time, which is how he got to his current position. He didn't want to see his closest relatives killing each other, but the road to succession has always been a life-and-death struggle since ancient times. Now, out of his 7 sons, there are still 6 left. Naturally, they only hope that more of his lineage can survive, rather than having to fight for life or death for power. Murong Huai as the crown prince is indeed the best arrangement. He is kind-hearted, gets things done, and will not push his brothers into desperate situations. I believe he is capable of handling the heavy responsibility. The rise and fall of a dynasty may sometimes be destroyed by a flawed emperor. He does not want the country to prosper for thousands of years and the country to fail in his generation. I will consider what Minner said carefully. His Majesty has already crossed out the qualifications of the 2nd prince, the 3rd prince, the 4th prince, and the 6th prince to compete for the throne. Little did they know that in the dark, the man in the brown brocade robe had listened to the entire story, his fingernails clenched so hard that they almost dug into his flesh.
Why? Why?
Because they are both legitimate children. The emperor father has never even looked at him twice. Even the queen mother is the same. They are both her children, but she always values and cherishes her brother more. There was also his elder brother, the emperor, who was usually very tolerant and disciplined him in every way. However, he personally told his father that he had rejected him and asked his father not to make him the crown prince, but to recommend a younger brother who was born out of wedlock as the crown prince. He knew very well that his mother and the imperial noble consort had been fighting for their entire lives, but now he had handed over the position of crown prince to her. If the imperial noble consort became the empress dowager in the future, would there be any place for him and his mother? Why can't he be the crown prince? Why can't he be the emperor? We are all sons of the emperor, who says that becoming an emperor must be determined by one's temperament. It's all fake, all fake. They are just pretending. Murong Rue was so angry that his eyes were about to burst, but he knew very well that if his father knew that he was eavesdropping, he would be finished. However, he was unwilling to accept this. After the emperor left, time was left for the queen and Murong Rue to visit. The queen held her son's hand and cried breathlessly, without any of the dignity that a queen should have. At this moment, she was just an ordinary mother who was about to send her son off. When Murong Min was dying, he was still comforting his mother. He glanced at Murong Rue, who was standing at the head of the bed with a dazed look on his face, and sighed. He didn't let his father investigate the food poisoning because he knew at that moment who was behind it. So he is protecting him. He knew that because of him, his younger brother, had always been ignored by his father and mother since he was a child, because his father and mother placed most of their hopes on him. Since childhood, he has only heard that the older ones should give way to the younger ones, but in Murong Rue's case, because his brother is the crown prince, he cannot compete with him for anything. At first, he just wanted his father and mother to pay more attention to him, instead of letting him act naughty and mischievous in the palace. Later, when he was older, he liked to do more mischief. After all, for him, he already had a brother, the crown prince, who was both talented and virtuous. He was at best just the icing on the cake. It doesn't matter. Every time he makes a mistake, his brother the crown prince will clear the obstacles for him and clean up the mess. He still remembered that many years ago, he came to the Purple Palace to ask his father to check his homework, but he heard his father say to his brother, the crown prince, that the 3rd brother acted in an extreme way, had a paranoid temper, and insisted on his own way, so he was not capable of handling important responsibilities, and that as the crown prince, he should encourage him. From that time on, he realized that in his father's eyes, he and his brother, who was born to the same mother, were 2 extremes. The prince was the good one, and he was the bad one. Later, as he grew older, He became more and more extreme, always moody, and from time to time, maids and servants in the mansion would be punished to death by him. The Queen Mother asked someone to suppress the situation and secretly prevented the emperor from knowing it. Otherwise, the emperor, who always ruled with benevolence, would not have let the matter rest. Precisely because he and the crown prince were both born to the queen, Muronmin often chose to protect his only brother and try to change him at the request of his mother. But what he got in return was only his growing unwillingness and resentment. Many years ago, Morong Rue accidentally found a woman who was very good at making medicinal food. The woman was very beautiful and was well versed in the knowledge of the interactions between various foods. Originally, he planned to keep the prince for himself as a concubine, until one day, the prince suddenly fell ill, and he suddenly had bad thoughts. Some evil thoughts take root. It is impossible to stop them. He arranged for the woman to stay with the prince and sent him there personally, saying that the prince was in poor health and that the woman's medicinal food was very good and could help him recuperate. Murong Min agreed immediately and kept the woman by his side. At the beginning, the medicinal food was indeed effective and made Murong Min's complexion better and better. However, from time to time, Murong Min would fall ill, and then the medicinal food prepared by this woman would always play a key role. Because the prince trusted his closest family member, he did not notice anything was wrong. Instead, as they spent time together day and night, he developed some feelings for the woman and soon made her the crown prince Baolin. After all these years of companionship, Baolin has become the prince's consort. The prince was very dependent on her, doted on her, and often kept her by his side. But this unknown secret was eventually suppressed by Murong Min's kindness. Not long after, news came from the East Palace that the prince had passed away. The crown princess and the two concubines saw the prince for the last time as they wished, but the prince's most beloved concubine, Zhou never saw him for the last time. Zhou fainted at the door of the prince's bedroom. She thought he was completely disappointed in her and wanted to never see her again, but she didn't know that the prince was still trying to save her life when he was dying. It was not her intention to frame the prince. She had already wanted to stop when she fell in love with him. But her family and clansmen were in Murong Rue's hands, so she had to take care of them. During this period, she struggled and resisted several times, but to no avail. I don't know when, the little maid beside her has been turned against me. She has followed me for several years and has mastered the pharmacology of most foods. Even if I don't do it, she can do it. Just a few days ago, the bowl of medicinal food that made Murong Min fall down was prepared by that maid. When the incident happened, the emperor ordered a thorough investigation. She committed suicide out of fear of punishment, but she did not give anyone away, so there was no evidence against her. The man is innocent unless he is in possession of a treasure. Since the emperor knew about the food poisoning, he would be able to trace it back to her. But she didn't know that the prince spoke sincerely before his death and did not want to see blood, and even refused to be buried alive with the emperor. When this imperial edict was issued, Zhou was completely hopeless, and her eyes were empty. She wore white mourning clothes and a white mourning hat. Her eyes were swollen from crying, and she had made up her mind. He was really stupid. How could there be such a kind person who would protect the people he cared about until his death, even though these people he cared about were trying every means to hurt him? The death of the crown prince has saddened the whole country. The emperor has issued an order that during the period of national mourning, all officials and their families must wear plain mourning clothes and silver jewelry for 49 days, and must not put on heavy makeup, and no lanterns or decorations are allowed in the palace. Ordinary officials are not allowed to hold wedding ceremonies within 6 months, and princes and nobles are not allowed to hold wedding ceremonies within a year. All officials in Kyoto and their families are not allowed to hold lavish birthday banquets or birthday celebrations, or to hold any poetry gatherings, flower viewing parties, lake cruises, or other gatherings within a year. The prince's coffin would stay in the Eastern Palace for 7 days, during which time all officials in the Kyoto and their families from their principal wives had to come to mourn and kneel before the prince's coffin for half a day, with the exception of pregnant women and young children. Suwon naturally had to come to mourn, and the Duke's mansion was the first group to go to mourn. However, on the second day after the Crown Prince's death, news came from the Eastern Palace that the Crown Prince's concubine had committed suicide by taking poison and died with the Crown Prince. Zhou Liangdi was the prince's favorite, and now that she had committed suicide for love, in the eyes of the world, she had not let down the prince's favor. When the prince was alive, he had 2 daughters and 1 son, who were born to the prince's wife and the prince's left concubine respectively. The system of burying concubines alive with the dead was abolished. All the concubines in the Eastern Palace who had no children did not need to be buried alive with the dead. They only had to go to Wanfu Temple to practice Buddhism for 3 years and pray for the prince's soul. After the 3 years were up, they could come down the mountain. By then, the royal family would prepare a villa for them to live out their old age. The emperor promised not to let them be buried alive with the emperor, but he would never let them go free. Once they were wives of the royal family, they would be wives of the royal family for life and had no right to marry again. But as long as I survived, it didn't matter if I lived in the other courtyard. I still had no worries about food and drink, which was good enough. Although the prince did not favor them during his lifetime, he was quite good to them and never treated anyone unfairly. But despite this, except Zhou Liangdi, no one was willing to follow him. This is human nature. In fact, Zhou Liangdi had already made up her mind. Regardless of whether the truth was revealed or not, she would follow him without hesitation. It is said that suicide for love is just an ancient rumor, but when Suwon and Zhongyu witnessed it with their own eyes, they were still shocked. In Zhongyu's opinion, when it comes to royal family members being buried alive, they don't ask whether you are willing or not. You just have to obey. This is why those concubines always try every possible means to win favor. Leaving offspring is only a way to consolidate status, but for the royal family, it is also a means of preserving their lives. Upon hearing the news, Suwon and Zhongyu held their hands even tighter. The 2 of them said almost in unison, "We will all live long." Then, they both laughed at the same time. The crown prince passed away. The whole capital was plunged into a sad atmosphere. Even the common people spontaneously discarded their colorful clothes and put on plain clothes, just to mourn the crown prince who was so kind to the people. The people in the Su mansion and the Duke's mansion all wore plain robes, and only wore plain silk flowers or elegant jewelry, such as white jade on their heads. In fact, this is all the honor and preference that His Majesty gives to the prince. Moreover, this is only for the crown prince. If an emperor dies, in accordance with the principle that a country cannot be without a monarch for a day, the mourning period will only be a month or so, because the ascension of a new emperor to the throne is a great joyous event. Just before Zhou Liangdi took poison, she met Morong Rue. She was wearing a plain white dress, her eyes were red and swollen, and her body was almost shaky. The prince had been seriously ill recently, and she had hardly eaten or drunk anything. She had been in tears every day, and when she heard those facts that made her conscience uneasy, she could hardly control herself. Broken, sad, and hopeless. She wanted to see Morong Rue again before she died, also for the sake of her family. She didn't want her family to continue to be under his control before she died. Morong Rue was not surprised at all that she came to see him. Seeing the once decent and elegant beauty now turned into such a haggard appearance, he did not feel sorry at all, nor did he regret that it was because of him that such an irreversible situation occurred. I came here today to tell you that I will follow His Royal Highness the Crown Prince, but before that, you have to let my family go. You have achieved your goal and killed your own brother. Are you still not satisfied? Morong Rue looked down at her, with some distance between them. Morong Rue drank a lot of wine. His hair was disheveled, and he reeked of alcohol. He did not have the demeanor of a nobleman at all. Haha, you and the emperor brother were really serious about each other, right? You are really capable. You hurt him while saying you loved him. Now that he is dead, who are you showing off to by acting so despicable? Morong Rue looked at her and smiled sarcastically. Zhou Liangdi couldn't help but clench her hands into fists. If she could, she would definitely kill this beast. But she couldn't, because this beast was someone that His Royal Highness the Crown Prince wanted to protect even if it meant his death. Was shaking with anger. Who is the most despicable one? I think you are the most disgusting one. Didn't you force me to do all this? I tell you, Murong Rue, release my family, and I will quietly follow His Royal Highness the Crown Prince. Otherwise, I will make your crimes public. Murong Rue was threatened, and the person was a woman. He sneered. Why do you think you are standing here and saying these things to me? I can crush you to death as easily as an ant. I will kill you, and then make it look like you committed suicide. Now everyone's attention is on my brother's funeral. Who do you think will care whether a little concubine like you lives or dies? Murong Rue was very arrogant, and he had the nerve to call him royal brother all the time, which made Zhou Liangdi feel physically uncomfortable. Nausea and vomiting. He was afraid that he had forgotten how he had threatened her in the past. Every time she wanted to tell the Crown Prince about this, he would threaten her with his family. Once, he even cut off one of his mother's fingers, on which was still a jade ring passed down from ancestors. The red mole on the finger was her mother's. How could she not know? It was also from that time that she knew that Murong Rue would not be lenient towards her family. Worlds. If you want to protect your loved one, you have to give up your family. Conversely, if you want to protect your family, you have to give up your loved one. She had tried her best to resist, but His Royal Highness the Crown Prince still went. Do you think I'm unprepared? Murong Rue, not everyone in the world is as kind as His Royal Highness the Crown Prince. I have written a secret letter and given it to a safe person for safekeeping. If I can't return to the East Palace today, the letter will immediately appear in the hands of the Emperor. By then, your crime of murdering His Royal Highness the Crown Prince will be a fact, and my death will be irrefutable evidence. How will you deal with it in the future? How will the Queen deal with it? At worst, we can just give up. Who is afraid of who? Zhou Liangdi came here with the determination to die. She was serious. If he didn't let her family go, she would definitely make this secret known to the public. They talked about afterwards. All we knew was that news came that afternoon that Zhou Liangdi had committed suicide. As for the person who holds the secret, no one knows who it is. Zhou Liangdi committed suicide for love, which won the admiration of the emperor. She was buried according to the etiquette of a concubine in the secondary tomb chamber of the prince's mausoleum, to accompany the prince in eternal sleep. Next to the prince's mausoleum is only reserved for the crown princess 100 years later. After that, the prince's funeral lasted for 7 days. Su Wan and Jiang Yu followed the duke and came to the East Palace as the first mourners to pay their respects. After kneeling for 2 hours, Su Wan's legs were numb. After listening to Jiang Yu's story about the prince and hearing how he requested the emperor not to bury his concubines with him on his deathbed, she admired the prince very much. Burying people alive with the dead is really disgusting. I still remember chatting with Murong Rue before. He said that if he could become emperor, the first thing he would do is to abolish this disgusting system of burying people alive with the dead. Jiang Yu said last night that if the crown prince was in good health, there would be no need for other princes, and he would be the crown prince that everyone expected. Su Wan could understand the weight of these words, so even though the process of kneeling was extremely tiring, she never complained of being tired. I just hope that the prince can live a long life in his next life. Stood up, her knees felt numb, and she almost fell down. Fortunately, Jiang Yu helped her up. Those who came to pay their respects were all sincere, except for a few who had ulterior motives. I heard that Prince Xian Murong Rue was extremely sad because of the death of His Royal Highness the Crown Prince. He couldn't accept it for a while and drank too much, which caused gastric bleeding. Now he is recuperating in Prince Xian's mansion. After waking up, he even refused to eat. Everyone sighed at the deep brotherly love between the crown prince and the virtuous king. The emperor, considering that he had been in poor health in recent days, told him not to appear before the coffin and to wait until he felt better before sending off the coffin. Perhaps only Murong Rue himself knew why he did not dare to come before the prince's spirit, because he himself could not face it and felt guilty. At night, Murong Rue cried alone in his room. Was it because of guilt or regret? When he learned that his brother had asked his father not to investigate the food poisoning case any further before his death, he knew that he was intentionally protecting him. But later, he directly rejected his own qualification to be the crown prince, which made him so angry that he lost his mind for a while. It is impossible to undo what has been done. Some roads have been taken wrongly, and there is no way to turn back. He is too embarrassed to go to the coffin to face his brother's spirit in heaven, and can only hide like a coward. Before murdering him, Morong Rue just wanted to make his health worse so that he would not be able to become the crown prince, because a dynasty would not want a sickly crown prince to become emperor in the future. In this way, the emperor and the queen mother would place all their hopes on him, the second legitimate son. But he was wrong. So many years had passed, and even if his health was poor, as long as he was not dead, his father had never thought of deposing him. He and his mother had never placed any hope on him. Now, the emperor's elder brother is dead, and his father still hasn't seen him. He actually wants to make a witch's son the crown prince. After thinking about it over and over again, he still couldn't figure it out. 7 days later, the prince's body was lowered into the imperial mausoleum, and order gradually returned to Kyoto. However, everyone was still wearing plain clothes, and no one dared to take the emperor's order lightly. The crown prince has just passed away, and a new heir will not be appointed for a while. We must at least wait until the national mourning is over. The princes are now trying their best to fight again, but only Morong Rue knows that the final winner of this battle for the throne has already been decided. If they don't take action, everything will be meaningless. So, he found his queen mother and told her everything he had overheard that day. When the queen heard the news, she slumped down in her seat with a dull look in her eyes. I kept repeating to myself, "It's impossible." Finally, she grabbed a pillow and threw it to the ground like a madman, sweeping the tea on the table, and the porcelain pieces shattered all over the floor. "Which, I will never let you have your way. Forget it," by the imperial noble consort for her entire life, and she had never been willing to accept this. Now that her son was gone, the son of that which actually dreamed of taking that position, she could not tolerate being suppressed by her for the rest of her life. If Morong Rue became the emperor, what would she have to do with him? And what would her son have to do with him? Her son is the legitimate heir of the emperor. What is Morong Rue?
Why?
Be patient, and be patient again. There is no need to be patient anymore. The emperor's preference for her enough? He promoted an imperial concubine while she, the queen, was still alive. She had to swallow this great humiliation. Morong Rue took the opportunity to add fuel to the fire and instigated, "Mother, we can't just sit there and wait for death. If we wait any longer, this Jin dynasty will belong to Morong Rue, and we won't have a good life in the future. We must think of a way. Morong Rue is the biggest stumbling block now. We must not let him become the crown prince." A hint of viciousness crept into the queen's eyes. She looked at Morong Rue and sneered. "Rueer, don't worry. Your mother is the queen, and you are a legitimate prince. Your brother doesn't have this blessing, but this blessing cannot be enjoyed by outsiders. This blessing can only be yours." The weather has entered October. Every year at this time, Kyoto starts to get cooler, and everyone puts on autumn clothes. Last night, and Suwon stayed in bed and refused to get up. As the sun was getting high in the sky, Jongyu kept Sumu's teachings in mind and made sure Suwon had 3 meals a day. He pulled the person out of the quilt and put clothes on her directly. As soon as Liu Ying and the others came in, they saw that Suwon was already dressed, but her clothes were a little sloppy. Her belt was loose and not straightened out, with wrinkles all over it. Her bow was also tied backwards, which really ruined her beauty. The main thing is that Jongyu, the owner of this masterpiece, seems quite satisfied. This girl's clothes are so complicated with ties here and there, and he doesn't know how to tie a pretty bow, so what should he do? After a while of struggling, Suwon finally came to his senses. He looked at his sloppy style with some helplessness. His technique was even worse than when he first started learning how to dress. Finally, after Liu Ying and the others tidied it up, it regained its beauty. Although it is just a simple white dress, it gives off a different kind of coolness when worn on Suwon. Jiang Yu knew that his dressing skills were disliked, so he wanted to develop hair combing skills. Maybe he was too strong and his hair was inevitably tangled after waking up, so when he wasn't paying attention, Suwon covered her hair with her hands with a hissing sound. Be gentle. Jiang Yu was at a loss for a moment. Does it hurt? I'll be gentler. Suwon glared at him, while Lu Yun and Lu Ying on the side looked at each other and couldn't help laughing. However, this kind of thing happened a second time after the first time, and Suwon was hurt by him again and again. Jiang Yu, if you have nothing to do every day, go and talk to the emperor, and he will find you something to do. Suwon really couldn't stand him. He was bored all day long and just wanted to find her to relieve his boredom. Jiang Yu scratched his head helplessly, feeling a little aggrieved. As expected, he was not suitable for such delicate work. Asking him to dress and comb a woman's hair is like forcing Zhang Fei to embroider. Isn't that like forcing him to do so? Forget it. Let's leave professional matters to professionals. Jiang Yu is indeed a bit idle now, but it won't be long before he becomes busy again. The queen has already started to act secretly, and Murom Huai will need his help when the time comes. However, life in the duke's mansion was indeed very boring. Suwon could only wander around the huge duke's mansion every day. Her grandfather had already returned to Zhongzhou. As soon as she left, Ningwei and her son became active again and started going out. On this day, we even invited guests over. This guest was none other than the Marquis's eldest daughter, Zhonglir. Suwon didn't expect that she would appear in the duke's mansion, especially during the national mourning period. At this time, everyone stayed at home obediently and did not go anywhere. Gatherings were not allowed. But Zhonglir actually went against the rules and came to visit the duke's mansion wearing a light blue dress. She wore a pearl flower of the same color on her head. Her outfit was not gaudy, but compared to everyone else's plain clothes, it still stood out. Jiang Yu took Suwon to pay respects to the duke and happened to run into them face to face. Zhonglir saw Jiang Yu as soon as she arrived. She was very surprised and couldn't take her eyes off Jiang Yu. This look made Suwon very unhappy, and his expression naturally didn't look very good. Greetings, Master Jiang.
Zhonglir bot politely.
Polite, but not much. Jiang Yu didn't even look at her. Why, Miss Zhong, can't you see the existence of this princess? Is the prince the only one in your eyes? The princess of Suwon and the prince of Jiangyu are on equal footing, but Zhonglir simply ignored her. Isn't that not good? Besides, what does it mean that she always stares at her man? Zhonglir really only had Jiangyu in her eyes, and she didn't want to admit the reality that they were already married. However, due to her status and etiquette, Zhonglir still bowed to her. Hello, princess. Suwon sneered, looking at her outfit. He had to say something to her. Miss Zhong, it's a national mourning period right now. It's not a good idea for you to come to the duke's mansion dressed like this, right? It would be fine if she did it herself, but she came to the duke's mansion to do it. She should not implicate them. Zhonglir's face changed, and she looked at herself with confidence. I'm wearing plain clothes, so it's not out of line. Besides, it was Madame Ning who invited me to visit the duke's mansion, so I can't dress too casually. Ningwei invited her here? Suwon glanced at Ningwei inconspicuously. There was such a large age gap between them, but she didn't believe that they could still play together. Neither of them is a good person, and nothing good will happen if they get together. Jiang Yu was too lazy to see them and impatiently pulled Suwon around them. Prince, Zhonglir called out from behind, somewhat reluctantly. Suwon really wanted to go up and give her two big sinuses. Who was she shouting for by being so pretentious? After walking for a while, Jiang Yu discovered that the person next to him seemed to be out of breath, and his face looked bad, and suddenly he laughed. That's great. He likes the way she gets jealous of him. What are you laughing at? Suwon looked at him in confusion. I'm laughing because someone's jealous jar has been overturned, and the air is full of sourness. Jiang Yu said bluntly. Upon hearing this, Suwon pinched his waist without any hesitation, with a force that was neither too strong nor too weak. Instead, the smile on Jiang Yu's face became even more intense. He reached out and pulled her into his arms, hugging her shoulders. At the same time, the couple had no idea that something had happened at home. Big deal. In the hall of the Su mansion, Su Yun gathered everyone in the family together and announced something very important. No one knew what had gone wrong with him all of a sudden, and they were all waiting quietly for him to make an announcement. Sue's mother and the others just thought that there was something wrong with their fourth son, and he always liked to make a fuss out of nothing. Dad, Mom, I want to get married. No one took it seriously at first, but who knew that as soon as he said this, Sue's mother almost choked to death on a mouthful of tea. What the heck? Isn't this a little too sudden? The fourth brother is going to get married without any rumors? Not only Sue's father and mother were shocked, but even the other people in the family looked incredulous. Sue E, who is usually calm, looked at him blankly. Fourth brother, are you kidding? I'm not kidding. I want to get married. But now is the time of national mourning. You have to wait until next year to get married. Sister-in-law Shen Qingli reminded. Ayun, what happened? I haven't heard that you were close to any girl, so why do you want to get married so suddenly? And you seem to be in a hurry? Who is the girl you want to marry? What happened between you two? The eldest brother was calmer and adjusted his mindset to ask him carefully. Su Yun's face was filled with shame, as if he had something to hide. After gritting his teeth, he decided to tell the truth. Her name is Yu Inshuang. She is the pastry chef hired by Chenglu. It's a long story. The whole story was that Chenglu received a few jars of good wine a few days ago. It happened that Su Yun had just learned how to make a new dessert that day, and Yu Inshuang praised him for a rare moment. He also noticed that Yu Inshuang seemed to be in a low mood that day. She was usually talkative and cheerful, but that day it was as if her soul had been sucked out and she was forcing herself to smile. After all, she was Su Yun's master, so Su Yun asked her what happened out of concern for his master. Some further questioning, I found out that that day was her father's death anniversary, which was why she was so sad. Su Yun immediately asked someone to buy things for the memorial service and took her to the riverside to burn paper money for the memorial service. That night, he accompanied her to burn a lot of paper money and gold ingots for her dead father, and Yu Inshuang seemed to be in a better mood. After returning to Chenglu, Yu Inshuang said she wanted to have a few drinks, just a few drinks, so Su Yun took out one of the new jars of good wine and asked someone to prepare some side dishes and send them to the lounge he had prepared in Chenglu. He specially set up a small room with complete furniture for him to rest in on weekdays. However, he didn't expect that he didn't ask the waiter clearly and thought it was just an ordinary fine wine. After drinking it, he found out that it was actually deer blood wine. No wonder it felt weird after drinking. After they drank a few cups in a row, they suddenly felt hot and thirsty, and their eyes became blurry when they looked at each other. Deer blood wine is a drink that couples drink to entertain each other. It is given free of charge by the merchant who supplies wine to Chenglu. They only say it is a very good wine, and it is collected by the guy in charge of handing over the wine in the building. He casually mentioned it in front of Su Yun, but by accident he ended up drinking it, and took Yu Inshuang along with it. That day happened to be the 15th day of the lunar month, and the moon was so round at night. I still remember what he wrote in the fortune stick when he prayed for his marriage partner, saying that his marriage partner would be at night, when the flowers are in full bloom and the moon is full. Now his words came true. He woke up the next morning, and Yu Inshuang was lying beside him, with traces of ambiguity all over her body. The two of them had already done what they wanted. After Yu Inshuang got up, she screamed, slapped him twice without hesitation, and then started crying. Even if she was heartless, she couldn't pretend nothing had happened after suddenly losing her virginity. Moreover, she simply wanted to have a few drinks last night and thank Su Yun, but who knew that things would get out of control later. Su Yun knew that he was in the wrong and that he had defiled the girl, so he had to take responsibility. After struggling and thinking for 2 days, he announced the matter. After hearing the whole story, everyone in the Su family fell silent. No one could have imagined that the fourth son's marriage would be so hasty. The Su family had heard of this Vietnamese girl. Su Yun often brought back all kinds of delicious snacks and desserts for Shin Qingli and the others, so they knew that this girl had a miserable life but was very clever and skillful. The Su family is also very reasonable and polite. Since their son has defiled the girl's innocence, he must be responsible for her to the end. However, now it just happened to be the right time. The crown prince had passed away, and officials in Kyoto were not allowed to hold weddings within 6 months. But it was really unfair to just bring the girl into the mansion like this. Either they don't want to admit it, or they are afraid of neglecting others. Fourth brother, it's right for you to do this. You have to give the girl an explanation. Dad, Mom, leave this matter to me and my second brother and his wife. Let's meet Miss Yu first to see what she thinks. Anyway, our family should try to treat Miss Yu with dignity and not let her feel wronged. As a woman, Shun Qingli can understand Yu Inshuang's situation. Therefore, she and Sun Linger had to go and talk to her about this matter initially. Su's mother nodded in approval. They had never seen this Miss Yu before and had no idea what her character was like. But Su-won seemed to have seen it, so Shun Qingli asked someone to go to the Duke's mansion to deliver a message and ask her to come back. When Su-won received the news, he didn't know what had happened, so he and Jiang-yu hurried back to the Su mansion. After listening to the whole story from the eldest and second sisters-in-law, Su-won immediately showed an expression that was neither surprised nor surprised, but also a little surprised. She also didn't expect that her fourth brother would have direct love with the girl. I had felt before that there was something wrong with these two people. They bickered every day, and it was only a matter of time before they fell in love with each other after spending so much time together. I just didn't expect that this accident would come so quickly. Since they have had a relationship, they must be brought into the house as soon as possible, but now we can't have a big celebration, so this just happened to be the right time. The three aunts and sisters-in-law discussed it and took a carriage directly to Chunglu. Su-yun said that he gave Yu Inshuang a few days off, and she now stays in the yard with her blind mother every day. Su-yun asked someone to harness a carriage to the yard to pick her up and take her to Chunglu. Yu Inshuang's mother didn't know that she was worried, and she was gone. That night became a secret in Yu Inshuang's heart that she could not tell. Although she didn't do anything these days, this matter kept lingering in her heart and mind. At first she was very angry and even felt ashamed, but when she saw Su-yun's attitude was so good, she couldn't bear it. In fact, she didn't hate Su-yun and even had some good feelings towards him. Su-yun was handsome and lively, and it was easy and cheerful to be with him. Although he was a bit talkative, he was kind in his rough yet thoughtful way, and girls liked him very much. It is undeniable that when he took her to the riverside to pay tribute to his father, she was wildly moved at that moment. So, after waking up in the morning, I subconsciously slapped him twice, and then I regretted it. He also looked remorseful and silently endured my anger. I felt a little regretful that I hit him and used so much force. He said sincerely that he would take responsibility for himself. Yu Inshuang smiled bitterly. He was the owner of the largest and most popular restaurant in Kyoto. He was both rich and handsome. The most important thing is that he has a strong background. His eldest brother is the Minister of Personnel, his second brother is a world-famous little doctor, his third brother is a famous general, his fifth brother is a great scholar in the literary world, and his only sister is a princess of noble status, and she married a prince. How could a cook like her dare to dream of such a noble family? What he meant by being responsible was probably that carrying himself into the mansion in a sedan chair and letting her be his concubine was already a compliment. But who would be willing to be a concubine of a girl from a respectable family who is a little bit strong-willed? But in this feudal era, if a woman loses her innocence and cannot let go of her dignity and pride, she will have to live like that for the rest of her life. To put it bluntly, she is a masochist. Yu Inshuang still did not refuse and got on the carriage. But she didn't expect Su-yun to come to pick her up in person. When their eyes met, the atmosphere became awkward. Su-yun was also very nervous. He looked at her carefully and tried to guess the emotions on her face. Yu Inshuang didn't say anything. She sat opposite him and kept looking out the window, not daring to look him in the eye. It was silent all the way, with only the sound of the carriage wheels being heard. Finally, it was Su-yun who spoke first, his tone slightly nervous and tentative. "How have you been these days?" Yu Inshuang nodded slightly. The two usually get along in a noisy way, so it's a bit strange to see them being so polite now. I asked you to go to Qinglu today, for no other reason. My eldest sister-in-law, second sister-in-law, and my youngest sister want to see you and talk to you.
Suyun explained.
When Yu Shuang heard him say this, she smiled bitterly where he couldn't see. She was somewhat flattered that Madame Su de Madame Su heir and even the princess came to see her in person. I guess he was thinking about how to persuade her to follow Su Yun. Yu Shuang had already made up her mind that she could pretend that this incident had never happened. She would take her mother and leave Kyoto. Anyway, the money she earned in Chenglu in the past few months and the apprenticeship fee given by Su Yun would not allow her to end up on the streets like before. But it was impossible for her to become a concubine. By then, she would find a small place, open a small shop and do business, and never return to Kyoto again. Otherwise, it would be awkward to see him every day. It's not that she is ambitious and wants to be the principal wife, but she has her own pride. Once upon a time, she was also a rich lady. She has always had the pride she should have, and she will never be anyone's concubine in this life. But the fact is, she thought too much. The Su family doesn't care about family status at all, and doesn't allow concubines. Today, the 3 aunts and sisters-in-law came to see her just to ask her if she is willing to come to the mansion first, go through the official documents with Su Yun, and become a legal couple. After the national mourning is over next year, they will hold a wedding for her. As soon as she entered the private room, Su Wan and her 2 aunts and sisters-in-law smiled at her very kindly. Su Yun accompanied him throughout the whole process, and he would need to express his opinion later. No one was the kind of person who would beat around the bush. The eldest sister-in-law, Xin Qingli, said frankly that she would be allowed to enter the mansion first, and the wedding banquet would be held later. From then on, she would be Su Yun's wife, his official wife. Moreover, Su Yun would not take a concubine in the future, and she would be the only woman he had. The 3 aunts and sisters-in-law felt very sorry because they had to force her to enter the mansion in a low-key manner. After all, which girl doesn't want to marry in a splendid way? As long as Yu Shuang herself had no objection, the Su family would prepare the betrothal gifts, and the 2 of them would match their birth dates and go to the government to get the paperwork done. She would also go back and explain things to her mother. At that time, we can bring her mother to the Su mansion, arrange a separate courtyard, and find a few people to serve her. Moreover, Su Yun personally promised to hold a grand wedding banquet for her next year. Yu Shuang was so overwhelmed by the news that she was unable to react. It turned out that they had never thought of making her a concubine. She was just overthinking. In the Su family, no one, whether it was Master Su or Minister Su, would take a concubine. This was their family motto. Yu Shuang, don't worry, I will treat you well in the future, and I will also treat your mother as my own mother. What happened that night was my fault, and I hurt you, so I am willing to do my best to be responsible for you to the end. You come into my house, you will be my only wife, Su Yun, and I will not take a concubine. Su Yun expressed his attitude. His words were sincere, and his attitude was also very sincere, and he seemed to have made up his mind. Yu Shuang was silent for a moment, then asked, "Do you have to marry me because you have a relationship with me, or do you have feelings for me and are willing to spend your life with me?" The question asked by Yu Shuang hit the nail on the head. Su Wan and her sister-in-law looked at each other and said that they could not interfere. Su Yun has to explain this himself. It is understandable that the girl asked this question. Moreover, the answer to this question is indeed very important to Yu Shuang. She didn't want Su Yun to marry her simply because he wanted to be responsible for her. If there was no love between them and they were just living together, then sorry, she didn't need the title of the main wife to restrict herself. This kind of marriage is in name only, and she doesn't want to become a couple of enemies with him. Su Yun was a little stunned for a moment. Faced with this question, he didn't know how to start the conversation, and his lips trembled. Who was always quick-witted, was now dumb, and could not say anything for a long time. Yu Shuang looked at his tangled expression, her eyes dimmed. She raised a bitter smile and stood up. I understand, Soo-yun, don't worry. I won't force you to be responsible for me, and I don't want you to spend your life with someone you don't like just because you have to be responsible for me. I don't want my future husband to have no feelings for me and just live with me. I won't pester you. I will take my mother away. You don't have to be responsible for me. This matter will just pass. After saying that, Yu In-shuang pushed the door and went out. Soo-won and the others couldn't say anything and could only worry. However, Yu In-shuang is also clear-headed. The fact that she can say these words shows that she is not the kind of person who will just accept fate and will never compromise herself. The person left, and Soo-yun hadn't reacted yet. Soo-won quickly urged him, "Go and catch up, fourth brother. Why have you turned into a piece of wood?" Soo-won was really angry. He was about to ruin his chance of getting a wife. Soo-yun then ran hurriedly to chase after him. Yu In-shuang went downstairs calmly, with no expression on her face and no tears. Instead, she smiled with relief. She did not regret having those relationships with him, and she would not use them to blackmail him to be responsible for herself. Perhaps in the eyes of outsiders, she was dreaming of becoming a phoenix. She was once the daughter of a wealthy family that had been in existence for centuries. Her current state of destitution was forced upon her. It's not like she had never had a good life before. What she pursues is the connection of soul. Soo-yun ran down holding up the hem of his robe and held her hand. Yu In-shuang turned around and looked at him. Actually, she still had some expectation in her heart. Soo-yun was very anxious, but he didn't know what he was anxious about. "Don't leave. I still have to be responsible for you." He opened his mouth. Soo-won, who was following behind him, was speechless, and Yu In-shuang's eyes also completely dimmed. She took a deep breath and gave up hope. "Boss Soo, I think I have made it very clear just now. If you don't understand, I can say it again." "No, listen to my explanation. That's not what I meant." Soo-yun's face turned red with anxiety. "What does Boss Soo mean? He doesn't like me but still wants to accommodate me?" Yu In-shuang's temper was indeed not very good. She wanted to shake off his hand, but Soo-yun held it tightly. At the staircase on the third floor, there were not many customers at this time, and it was noisy downstairs, so no one paid attention to the upstairs. "Please let me go, Boss Soo." Yu In-shuang's tone was already very bad. "No, if I let you go, you'll leave." Soo-yun shook his head vigorously. The two of them were pulling each other back and forth, which attracted the attention of the guests downstairs. Yu In-shuang didn't want to listen to his explanation. He didn't know how to start talking in this environment, so he gritted his teeth, picked up the man, and walked upstairs. When passing by Soo-won, Yu In-shuang was still struggling. "Let me go, Soo-yun. Are you forcing me?"
Soo-yun rimando un movet.
Yu In-shuang bit his shoulder. Soo-yun took a breath and endured the pain to carry her into the house and closed the door. Shen Qingli stood inside the door, holding her belly. Sun Linga stood in front to protect her, and Soo-won stood outside the door, and seeing this situation, he quickly made way. Fourth brother is really brave. He carries the person away. He usually seems weak and frail, but at this moment he looks quite manly. We have made our words clear and expressed our attitude. The rest is up to them to decide. Shen Qingli muttered something in the back. Anyway, the Soo family's attitude towards Yu In-shuang was clear, and they were unwilling to let her down. She cared about Soo-yun's attitude towards her, so it was not appropriate for them to interfere too much. So the three aunts and sisters-in-law went back first. In the room, Soo-yun threw the person on the couch and looked at her breathlessly. He didn't expect that such a light person could be so strong. Her legs moved so fast, which made him tired. "Soo-yun, are you sick? You don't like me, so why are you forcing me? Let me tell you, Yu In-shuang, won't settle for anything less. It's just one night of sleeping together. It's no big deal. A good woman will never have trouble finding a husband. In the future, someone who loves me will marry me." Her lips were blocked by Soo-yun, and she couldn't speak for a moment, and could only make some tiny sounds. Soo-yun didn't have any kissing skills, he just held her tightly. It took a long time before he left her lips. The two of them were very close, their breaths spraying each other. "Still talking? Is it my turn to speak now?" Soo-yun's face was pale, and his voice was hoarse. Yu Shuang became quiet and stopped talking. I, Su Yun, am not marrying you, Yu Shuang, simply because I want to take responsibility. I like you, so I want to spend the rest of my life with you and take care of you forever. I will treat you well, and your mother well. If you follow me in the future, you will be the boss lady of Qinglu. You can order anyone around, including me, so marry me. There is no other boss who can make such a domineering confession. Especially what the boss lady said, I believe few girls can refuse it. Real? Yu Shuang's eyes turned red, and she looked a little tentative. She was afraid that Su Yun said this just to calm himself down temporarily. It's true. It couldn't be more true. If I lied to you, I would be struck by lightning. He made a swearing gesture. Yu Shuang then laughed and cried with joy. The next second, she hugged his neck, turned over, pushed him down, and kissed him. Su Yun was confused, at a loss, even a little helpless, and let her kiss him randomly. The main thing is, even though it was so careless, he still felt something in the kiss. Yu Shuang reached out to untie his belt. Su Yun was startled and quickly held her hand down. What are you doing? Stop messing around. I didn't do anything wrong. I'm just afraid that you will regret it. Yu Shuang blinked her big eyes and looked at him seriously. That won't work either. Su Yun clutched his belt tightly. But he may not know that his daughter-in-law has a wild temper. Why are you scared? I'm not scared at all.
I didn't feel anything that night.
Let's try again. The two of them have already had love, and now it seems like they are a perfect match, so it doesn't matter if it happens one more time or two more times. Afterwards, no one knew whether the two had discussed it or not. All we knew was that at night, Su Yun brought the person back to the Su mansion, holding hands. Just in time for dinner at the Su mansion, Su's mother was very happy to see Su Yun bringing the person back. She smiled and pulled Yu Shuang to her side to take a closer look. The more she looked, the deeper the smile on her face. She touched her ear gently, then pulled off a fine jade bracelet from her wrist and put it on her. Her eldest daughter-in-law and second daughter-in-law were both spoiled and brought up at home and had never experienced any hardships. But the fourth daughter-in-law was different. She heard about what happened in her family. The entire family was raided, leaving only her and a blind mother. It is said that her mother's eyes were blinded. What a miserable child. When Su's mother saw her frail figure, she wanted to keep her by her side and take good care of her. The kindness shown to her by Su's mother and everyone in the Su family made Yu Shuang feel calm. During the meal, Su's mother asked her to sit next to her and attentively picked up dishes and served soup for her. She treated her with the most positive attitude, silently telling her that she liked her as a daughter-in-law very much and asked her not to have any reservations. Shuang, I'll find some time to go meet your mother and bring her home, so she can keep me company in the future. Madam, I haven't told my mother yet. After I tell her if she agrees, I will bring her to see you. Yu Shuang had no time to tell her mother about this, so she followed Su Yun to the Su mansion. Su's mother could understand all of this, so she nodded in approval. Shuang, as long as your mother agrees, we will prepare the betrothal gifts immediately and follow the proper procedures. However, now is the time, so we have to keep a low profile.
Please don't mind it.
We will hold a proper wedding banquet for you next year, okay? Su's mother knew that every woman wanted to marry in grand style, and she didn't want to let Yu Shuang down, but there was nothing she could do. Yu Shuang cared about Su Yun as a person and didn't care at all whether they could have a lively wedding. In fact, he was willing to marry her and told her that he liked her. These alone were enough. According to her situation, the Su family bought her a private house in Kyoto in her name, as usual. It was registered in her name as a support for her, and the betrothal gifts would be sent to the private house when the time came. Yu Shuang told her mother about this after she returned. When her mother heard that her daughter had gotten together with her employer by accident, she knew that the matter was done. Over the past few months, she had lived in the yard with good food and drink, and she could see that the owner of Qinglu was a kind-hearted man who gave her and her daughter a way to survive. After hearing her daughter talk about how good the Su family was, she had to agree even if she didn't want to. The mother and daughter had experienced house raids and wandering, and they were already content with the peaceful life they finally had. But now, by some strange coincidence, they had actually created a marriage. Destined to meet each other no matter how far apart they are, perhaps this marriage is destined by God. Mrs. Yu nodded and agreed to the marriage, and the two families met naturally. However, considering that Madame Yu was blind, Sue's mother went to pick her up in person to express her sincerity. It can be seen that Mrs. Yu's manners and the way she speaks show that she was born in a wealthy family. If someone in the family hadn't committed a crime and had their property confiscated, they wouldn't have fallen to this point, and Yu Inshuang would have been a pampered young lady. Hundreds of people in the family died, but only the two of them were left. They were able to survive only because they bribed a lot of money and received leniency from their superiors. But they were also expelled from Yunqing and could never return to their hometown. Madame Yu was even blinded in order to protect her. Su Yun paid for the betrothal gifts himself, and his family also prepared some for him, so the total amount was almost 100,000 taels. In order to keep a low profile, the betrothal gifts were only packed in boxes without even the red silk tied around them. Mrs. Yu originally didn't want to live in the Su mansion. She said that she could live alone in a private house, and Yu Inshuang would have a place to return to her parents' home in the future. But since she was blind, it must have been very inconvenient for her. After repeated persuasion from the Su family and her son-in-law, she finally nodded and agreed to move to the Su mansion. Sue's mother knew that she was afraid of troublesome everyone, so she didn't arrange too many people to serve her, and the yard was also relatively remote and quiet. On weekdays, if she wanted to eat with everyone, she would have someone help her to the front hall. If she didn't want to eat with everyone, the food would be delivered to her yard. Anyway, she would do whatever made her feel comfortable. They couldn't make it too high-profile outside, but at home, Sue's mother still gathered the whole family together and decorated Su Yun's room separately, making it like a wedding room so that the couple could simply complete the ceremony. The bedding and other things were all red, and dragon and phoenix candles were lit, and dried fruits such as, "May you have a baby soon," were prepared. Yu Inshuang looked at all this, and if she still couldn't feel the Su family's importance to her, then she would be a fool. At this moment, she was happy because she had a home again. I hurried into the mansion and everything was settled, but it only took half a month. If Su Yun hadn't made any noise, he would have made a stunning debut, overtaking his third brother and getting married first. The poor third brother can only wait patiently for a year before he can win the beauty. After the death of the crown prince, the court became unusually quiet, but the private struggles among the princes never stopped. The virtuous King Morong Rue suddenly began to work hard, attending court on time every day, and even saying a few words in the court, although they were all useless nonsense. Morong Sheng and Morong Huai did not know their father's decision yet. He had already drafted an imperial edict to appoint the seventh prince Morong Huai as the crown prince. Once the mourning period for the crown prince was over the following year, he would announce it directly to the world. The days passed slowly. Some people were happy, some were sad. Happy people, such as Su Wan and Jiang Yu and the Su family, live happily and comfortably every day because everyone gets what they want and can be with the people they love. A worried person like Gu Yu, no matter how hard she tried, she still couldn't guard against Zhao Hui. Zhao Hui still succeeded in having love with Morong Sheng. After a night of love, she taunted Gu Yu with great pride. Even if you watch closely, what does it matter? I still succeeded in sleeping with the prince. If there is a first time, there will be a second time. Zhao Hui is absolutely sure that as long as the prince comes 2 more times, she will be able to successfully conceive a legitimate child. No matter whether it is a boy or a girl, as long as she gives birth to the child before Gu Yu, her position will be as solid as a rock. The one-to-one relationship that Gu Yu pursued was ultimately tainted and cracked. She had a big fight with Morong Sheng and eventually parted ways unhappily. Morong Sheng was drugged, and it was not his intention to have a relationship with Zhao Hui. However, Gu Yu did not understand him at all and made a fuss with him. No matter how he explained, she would not listen. In the end, they could not reach an agreement on the talk, so there was no need to talk further. The two of them fell into a Cold War period, and Murongsheng slept in the study every day. The road to the court was not smooth enough to annoy him, and now the backyard was still not peaceful, which really made him exhausted. It's strange to say, Guyu has been in the mansion for several months and Murongsheng stays with her every day, but she just can't get pregnant and there is no movement. She even suspected that there was something wrong with her body, so she went to see a royal physician, but the doctor found nothing wrong. She was still smart enough to know how to look for the cause. If she couldn't find it in herself, she would look for it around her. Hard work pays off. She found that a small amount of musk was added to her rouge. If she smelled it every day and used it on her face, she would not easily get pregnant. It was obvious that this was Xiao Hui's trick. She didn't make a fuss, but quietly replaced the rouge and used it normally. He also found out the traitor in his own yard, but did not alert the enemy for the time being. Instead, he made it impossible for her to get close to him without her knowing, and sent her to do the work he had assigned her to do outside. After she and Murongsheng had been in a cold war for half a month, her menstrual period, which had been delayed for several days, did not come, so she asked her maid, who was skilled in medicine, to check her pulse, and found out that she was pregnant. It would be better for this child to arrive at the right time than to arrive early. Guyu's situation was turned around in an instant, but she decided to keep a low profile. She also fabricated the illusion that she had already had her period this month, and sent out several blood-stained menstrual belts every day to confuse Xiao Hui and make her let down her guard. After the baby is 3 months old and is stable, she will deal with Xiao Hui and avenge herself. Didn't she want to give birth to a legitimate son? If she is not allowed to give birth, then don't blame her for not being able to give birth. If she has no heirs by then, how can she maintain her position? After much thought, Murongsheng decided to take the initiative to find Guyu for reconciliation. He undoubtedly loved her, so he was willing to take the initiative. No matter how the plot changes because of Su Wan, the line between Murongsheng and Guyu has always been locked. In the end, Guyu chose to forgive him for the sake of her child. When Murongsheng learned that she was pregnant, he was as happy as a child and kept spinning around in his arms. Guyu told him her plan and said that if she gave anyone an opportunity to take advantage of her again, she would never forgive him. The two of them put aside their past grudges and continued to live their daily lives as lovingly as before. Xiao Hui discovered that her efforts to sow discord only lasted less than half a month. She was so angry that her teeth were itching, and she was thinking about how to have the next fight with the prince.
December soon came.
Kyoto was covered with snow, and everything was covered in white. When the princess woke up in the morning, the snow in the yard had piled up to her ankles. Nanny Lu arranged for people to shovel the snow in the yard to prevent her from accidentally falling. Since they got married, Jiang Yu has always spoiled her and taken care of her in every possible way, without any need to follow any rules. Look, there's a fire lit in the room and the heating is on, so it's not cold at all. Jiang Yu still couldn't escape the fate of working, as Murong Huai was going to let him enter the court after the new year. After the new year, he would no longer be able to sleep in and hug his wife every morning. As for what kind of assignment he will be assigned, I don't know. It will definitely not be one that has too much authority, but it will be able to help Murong Huai. When Su Wan woke up, he found it was snowing heavily outside. He was very happy and immediately arranged for people to shovel the snow and make a snowman to play with. As a result, the Su family sent another message, asking her to go back because they had good news to announce. Su Wan wondered what good news there could be, but she still went back with Jiang Yu. Because it was snowing, the carriage moved slowly. When we got home, we had to hold an umbrella, otherwise our hair would turn white after just a few steps. The good news that the Su family talked about was that the 4th sister-in-law was pregnant. She has been pregnant since the first time she had love with Su Yun. It has been more than a month now. This is really great news. Su Yun is a winner in his entire life. Let's say, he has overtaken others in every corner. Now, Shin Qingli is already 7 months pregnant. It is inconvenient for her to go anywhere with such a big belly. Everyone is wearing fox fur, and another year is changing from autumn to winter. At the same time in Xiangzhou, Mr. Qi and had also sent people to pick up Luo Shizhu to go home for the new year. She has been away for half a year, and her family is missing her and thinking about bringing her back. She and the fifth brother were in the passionate period of love, and they stayed together every day under the moonlight. Although Su-yi was reluctant to let her go, he could not stop Luo Shiju from going back due to etiquette. Su's mother has already thought about it. She plans to arrange the marriages of all the children together next year. In this way, all the children in the family will have a place to stay, and she can enjoy her old age in peace. Luo Shiju was also reluctant to leave, but she had been out alone for too long and it was really time to go home. Sui has promised her that next year, after the 6-month mourning period is over, he will go to Xiangzhou with a betrothal gift to propose to her and ask to marry her. With the promise, Luo Shiju left Kyoto and returned to Xiangzhou with peace of mind. The next time they met might be a few months later. The fourth sister-in-law's pregnancy was great news for the Su family, especially Su-yun. He was so happy that he didn't expect that his child would be born earlier than his second and third brothers. I won't compete with him, my eldest brother, he is also old. But the most exciting thing is yet to come. Yu Yinshuang is giving birth to twins. Su-yun was even more careful about Yu Yinshuang and came back from Chenglu early every day to accompany her. The older Shin Qingli gets, the stronger the maternal love glows in her. She is looking forward to finding out whether the baby will be a boy or a girl after it is born. She wanted a boy as her first child and a daughter as her second child, so that she and Su Jing would have both a son and a daughter. Su Jing is already 26 years old, and he must have a son, but Su Jing wants a daughter more. A daughter is also good, as she is well-behaved, sensible, and considerate. Whether he has a son or not, what matters is who he has the son with. Faced with Su-yun's overtaking on the curve, second sister-in-law Sun Linger held her belly and fell into deep thought. She and Su-mu have been married for more than 3 months. Why is there still no movement from her? She was also anxious because she also wanted to be a mother and she wanted Su-mu to be a father even more. Su-mu has always been more casual, and he likes to let everything take its course and never force anything. Compared to having a child, he hopes that she can be healthy. Being healthy is more important than anything else. However, the attentive man still noticed his wife's anxiety and absent-mindedness. After being together for so many years, he already knew Sun Linger's thoughts very well. In the evening, Sun Linger had just finished taking a bath and was sitting in front of the dressing table combing her hair in her pajamas. Su-mu hugged her from behind and kissed her ear. As a result, Sun Linger couldn't help but shiver, and her whole body shook. Forced to pull back her thoughts, she shrank her neck. "What are you doing?" Su-mu did not answer her. Instead, he hooked his lips around hers and kissed her vaguely. Then he picked her up and carried her to the bed. Su-mu is usually quite restrained and won't ask for excessive things, but today he is obviously a little crazy. "Want a child?"
Huh?
He asked her in a hoarse voice. Sun Linger's thoughts were exposed by her, and she felt a little embarrassed, but she nodded honestly. "I want to give birth to a baby for you." She circled her fingers on his chest, making him feel itchy. "Then give birth to 2. Su-mu showed a seductive and lustful smile, then buried his head in her neck and kissed her continuously. A night of romance. In fact, Sun Linger is not the only one who wants a child. Su-won also has the idea, but it's not as strong. She often fantasized about what her and Jiangyu's child would look like in the future. Would he look like him or her? But there is no doubt that she will not be too ugly. After all, their genes are there. Jiangyu was not in a hurry. He wanted to spend more time with Su-won before thinking about having children. Moreover, he had a feeling that Kyoto might not be peaceful in the next 2 years, and having a child at this time would be unsafe. But she didn't have the final say in such matters, and he didn't specifically ask Su-won to take medicine to prevent it. After all, taking too much medicine is not good. If the child came, all he could do was try to protect her and the child. However, a peaceful and sweet life will be accompanied by some discomfort from time to time. Ningwei is not an honest person. Since Su-won took over the family, she has managed everything very well and in a comprehensive manner, making it impossible to find any mistakes. But every time she saw her and Jiangyu being so affectionate, she got so angry that she didn't want them to have an easy time. She and the Duke have been together for so many years, but no matter what she did or how much sincerity she gave, she never got his attention, so she couldn't stand Jiangyu and Suwon. He had to do something weird to annoy Suwon. Ever since Suwon came into the family, her sense of presence has become less and less. Now the servants in the mansion no longer have the respect they used to have for her, and instead treat her as an unfavored concubine. Her useless son is also a hopeless case. He seems to have accepted his fate and spends his days in debauchery and drunkenness. Suwon also discovered inadvertently that there seemed to be many more beautiful maids in the mansion suddenly, and these maids all had one characteristic. They looked pure and had dimples. Some had big dimples on their cheeks, while others had small dimples like her. These maids seemed to have made an agreement and always hung around Jiangyu. It's snowing in Kyoto now, and the ground is slippery. Wherever Jiangyu appears, there are people falling down for no reason and spraining their legs. Those maids called out, "Young master," in sweet voices. Jiangyu was about to vomit. It was obvious that this was directed at him. It was just that the person behind the scenes had a very poor eye for selecting people. After all, temperament was something that could not be learned. Whenever Jiangyu encountered this situation, he would just say, "If you can't even do a small thing, why would the Duke's mansion support you? Sell you back to the pawn shop and demote you to a third-class servant." After being punished twice, as an example of someone being killed to scare the monkeys, some timid people would not dare to do it again, but Ningwei dared to do it, as she was best at committing crimes at the height of public controversy. On this day, Suwon was invited by Jiaqing to appreciate the snow plum blossoms. Jiangyu was alone in the mansion, and the servants brought him the black tea he must drink every day as usual. Someone had added something to the black tea. Not long after drinking it, he felt something was wrong with his whole body, as if he was burning. He knew at the first moment that he had been drugged by an aphrodisiac, and the dosage was very strong. He took out a pill and swallowed it, but he still couldn't completely eliminate the effects of the drug. All he could think about was Suwon. At this time, a woman happened to come. She dressed in a similar bun to Suwon's usual style and also deliberately wore hibiscus scent. Aphrodisiac that Jiang Yuzhong took was the kind that makes your brain unclear after taking it, and a large dose makes it easier to mistake the person. It was obvious that he had come prepared. Ningwei was calculating that as long as Jiang Yu and the person she arranged succeeded, he would have to bite the bullet and marry that person. There is no other purpose, just to discuss them. Suwon will definitely lose her composure because of this sudden change. Jiang Yu's backyard is in trouble, and Suwon will cause trouble. Then she can take the opportunity to find evidence and take back the power to be the head of the family. But little did he know that Jiang Yu is not so easy to trick. The life-saving drugs on him were all developed by Dr. Sun, which could delay the effects of various drugs, including aphrodisiacs. After taking the medicine, Jiang Yu was able to stay clear-headed, but he still couldn't control his body's reactions. The woman stuck close to him and imitated Suwon in calling him a you. At that moment, Jiang Yu's stomach churned, and he felt that his name had been tarnished. This woman was none other than Zhong Lier. No wonder Ningwei was so confident. As long as it was accomplished, Jiang Yu would have to recognize her whether he wanted to or not because of Zhong Lier's identity. Those hands were about to touch him. Jiang Yu simply told her to get lost. Then, he grabbed her shoulders and threw her outside in the snow, wiping his hands with a handkerchief with disgust, as if he had touched something dirty. It was snowing heavily outside. Zhong Lier was wearing thin clothes, and soon she was shivering with cold, and her teeth were chattering. She thought it was impossible. How could he still stay awake with such a large dose? Just as I was thinking about it, I heard Jiang Yu speak. Throw her in front of the gate of Shun Marquis Mansion and let everyone know how she, a legitimate daughter of the mansion, charmed a married man with despicable and dirty means. Jiang Yu was really angry this time and was determined to ruin her reputation. Afterwards, he ordered people to lock Ningwei up and wait for her fate. Zhong Lier was dragged out of the Duke's mansion. She struggled all the way, crying and shouting, asking Jiang Yu to let her go. She knew she was wrong. If this gets out, she, a legitimate daughter of a marquis, used despicable means to charm someone but failed, and was thrown at the door of the marquis. She will be ruined, completely ruined. It's no use realizing they were wrong now, it's too late, they have annoyed Jiangyu off. Su-won only knew that he was enjoying the plum blossoms and then was taken back in a hurry. There was no trace of charcoal ash in the room. Jiangyu was lying on his side in thin pajamas, his face flushed and his eyes bloodshot. Su-won had just untied her fox fur cloak when she realized something was wrong with him. She walked up to him when he pulled her hand and threw her to the ground, feeling dizzy. His body was really hot, his eyes were red, and he pulled her clothes without any reason. Su-won was a little scared. Jiangyu was usually moved, no matter how moved he was. He would not be so rude. His appearance really scared Su-won a little, but she quickly realized that he was drugged and had reached his limit of endurance. At this time, I can't care about asking clearly or not. I have to quickly relieve the effects of the medicine in his body. Otherwise, if it takes too long, I'm afraid he will hurt his body. However, Su-won still underestimated the properties of the medicine. Jiangyu was really like a mad beast. At some point, all the servants in the yard had retreated outside. Su-won had never experienced such a high intensity before. She felt exhausted and her throat became hoarse. From day to night for the effect of the medicine to completely wear off, and Su-won had been so exhausted that he fell into a deep sleep. There were several bruises on his arms and inner thighs, and his collarbone and neck were covered with kiss marks. Her long hair was messy and covered the pillow, tangled with his long hair, making it impossible to tell whose was whose. The room was filled with an ambiguous smell that was difficult to dissipate. The clothes were torn to tatters, and some were even torn to pieces. When Jiangyu regained consciousness, he realized how cruelly he had tortured the other person, and his heart was filled with endless heartache and regret. At the same time, there was a hint of ruthlessness in his eyes. He would not let go easily of those who were plotting against him. Ningwei was taken to the dungeon of the Duke's mansion, and she screamed like a shrew all the way. In fact, she knew in her heart that Zhong Lier had failed, but she didn't expect Jiangyu to be so arrogant and directly captured her and locked her up in the dungeon. No matter how ridiculous Jiang Yen behaved on weekdays, he could no longer sit still after seeing his mother being arrested. He ran to question Jiangyu, asking what his mother had done to him that he wanted to arrest her. However, Jiangyu was in dire straits at the time and had no time to care about him, so he was stopped outside. He had no choice but to go to his father, Duke Jiang, but Duke Jiang already knew the whole story. It was not easy for him to intervene. Ningwei was closely involved in this matter. She had been close to Zhong Lier in the past 2 months. It was hard not to think that she was the one who did it. Moreover, the older she gets, the dumber her brain becomes. Even Duke Jiang is suffering from stupidity. As for Zhong Lier, she was wearing a skirt that exposed her neck and collarbone and was thrown mercilessly at the gate of the Marquis mansion, attracting a lot of onlookers. Following Jiangyu's instructions, Anan ruined her reputation and found many Navy soldiers to be placed among the crowd, spreading the rumor that she had tried to charm Prince Jiang but failed, and instead angered him. Once this rumor gets out, due to the power of public opinion, everyone will know about it within 2 days. By then, Zhong Lier would be a person despised by everyone. She charmed a married man while still waiting to be married, and openly competed with the princess for her mansion. In the end, she was discovered and thrown back at the door of the Marquis's mansion. Not only would her reputation be ruined and it would be difficult for her to get married in the future, but even the Marquis of Shund would lose face and have no face to see anyone. Princess Xuanla is a beautiful lady with a great reputation, while Zhong Lier is nothing. It is really sad that a daughter of an aristocratic family could do such a despicable thing. She just wanted to marry the prince. Regardless of whether the prince liked her or not, she would be a concubine if she married him. With her status, she could choose any official son in Kyoto and make him the principal wife. But she liked to be a servile person and played a good hand badly. Sometimes, if a person wants others to respect her, she has to seek respect for herself. Those who belittle themselves will never have a good ending. The legitimate daughter of the Shun Marquis became the topic of conversation in Kyoto for a while. Everyone felt ashamed when talking about her, and some women even felt ashamed of it. How could she compare with Princess Xuanla? Could the princess tolerate her? Suwon woke up in the middle of the night. His whole body felt like it was broken and reassembled, and he even felt like his waist was about to break. The burning pain made her grimace. Her throat was very dry and a little painful, so she wanted to drink some water. But when she opened her mouth, she found that her voice was hoarse. Jiangyu had been holding her. When he saw her wake up, she was saying something, but it was unclear. Leaned closer to her mouth and listened clearly that she wanted to drink water. He quickly stood up and poured her some water. Suwon gulped down a few glasses of water and felt her throat feel better. High-intensity exercise, my stomach is empty, and starts to protest. Jiangyu asked someone to prepare some light meat porridge and small wontons. Suwon finished eating everything. She looked like she had really suffered a lot. Only after eating did she feel much more energetic. Without waiting for Jiangyu to explain or apologize to her, she fell headfirst onto the pillow and fell into a deep sleep again. Don't say anything more. Let's talk about it tomorrow. She needs to restore her energy. Jiangyu blamed himself more and more, thinking that she was angry. After Suwon had a good sleep, he realized what happened yesterday and felt a little nauseous for a moment. She looked at Jiangyu and asked, "Did you touch her?" Jiangyu held his forehead helplessly. What do you mean he touched her? If he had touched her, he wouldn't be sitting here now. He would probably have been crushed to ashes. Suwon was just saying it casually. She still believed him very much on this point. Otherwise, she wouldn't have been tortured so badly. What are you going to do with Ningwei? Now a day and a night have passed, and Ningwei is still imprisoned in the cold and damp dungeon. Duke Jiang has spoken, and the Shun Marquis mansion has also put pressure on her, saying that Ningwei has led Zhong Lier astray, and asked Duke Jiang to give an explanation. They are really killing the donkey after it has done its work, acting like they are the victims. But it's better this way. Ningwei has fallen into her own hands this time. The Duke said that they could do whatever they wanted to him, but he had to save his life. The Chinese New Year is coming soon. After the Chinese New Year, Suwon will move to the mansion next to the Su family. The Duke has no objection and is willing to move in with them. As for Ningwei, Suwon decided to keep her locked up for a few more days and then send her to a farm in the suburbs, find someone to look after her, and let her live alone in the suburbs until she died, and never think of returning to Kyoto in this life. As for Jiang Yan, Duke Jiang said if you want her mother, then don't want Duke Jiang's mansion. If you want Duke Jiang's mansion, then don't interfere in your mother's affairs. Duke Jiang has already found a marriage for him. Although the other party's family is not as well off as their duke's mansion, the daughter of the other party is also a legitimate daughter. He prepared a betrothal gift for him and then left the old duke's mansion to him and gave him half of the shops under his name. From then on, he just lived an honest life and did not cause any more trouble. Duke Jiang favored his eldest son. He did not completely ignore his younger son and also prepared a share of the family property for him. Although Ningwei could not return to Beijing and see him, she would not have to worry about food and drink in the farm in the suburbs. If Jiang Yan had any brains, he should follow his father's arrangements and live a good life first. Without the Duke Jiang mansion, he would be nothing. At least Jiang Yu and Suwon could still tolerate him. Jiang Yan knew that his mother could not escape this time no matter what, but at least she could still survive and have a place to live. In fact, he had told his mother more than once, "Let's just be a little stupid. Isn't it good to live a peaceful life? Why do we need rights?" He living a comfortable life now. The title of jerk son is not nice, but no one dares to look down on him outside because he comes from the Duke of Zhong's mansion. But his mother was blinded by greed. She wanted everything and everything. Now look at her, she has lost more than she gained. He also understood that as long as he was honest and followed instructions, he would be able to live a smooth life. His mother lived in a farm in the suburbs and would not have any problems either, as she would not have to worry about food and drink. It's just right that she left, so I don't have to worry every day, afraid that she will make a big noise and make it impossible to resolve. This time, fortunately, The loss was stopped in time, otherwise the consequences would be disastrous. He knew that his eldest brother would dare to do anything when he went crazy. He had seen how he killed people quickly and efficiently, with one move to kill people in the throat. Just thinking about it made him feel a chill in his neck. Isn't it good to be alive? Isn't it good to be a salted fish? Therefore, Jiang Yan agreed to Duke Zhong's arrangement, took his share of the family property, married a legitimate wife and lived with her, and had a few beautiful concubines in the backyard. After they left, he would own such a big house alone, and he would no longer have to look at anyone's face or worry about anything. How wonderful would this life be? Ningwei had been locked up in the dungeon for 4 or 5 days and had caught a severe cold. She no longer had the energy to make a fuss, so Su Wan ordered her to be released. He found a doctor to examine her and gave her medicine, and she was sent out of Kyoto that afternoon. Used to be around her were replaced by her own people, who watched her every day to see how she acted. In the manner, Zhang Yu also arranged people to watch her day and night. She would not be able to leave for the rest of her life. If she was smart, she should be honest. Zhong Liar's reputation was completely ruined. Several families who were originally willing to marry her now avoided her. She was bewitched by Jiang Yu's appearance for a moment and couldn't get him out of her mind. She kept thinking about him until she could get him. This is the disadvantage of being too obsessed with appearance. Moreover, Jiang Yu was originally arranged for her, but ended up being with Su Wan. It was clearly just a bland remark from Duke Jiang, and it had not even been confirmed. However, she still felt that something of hers was taken away, so she listened to Ningwei's instigation and did something foolish. Her reputation was ruined, and no one wanted to associate with her. Even her former close friends stopped wanting her overnight. Her father was extremely disappointed in her and placed all his hopes on her half-sister. The current situation is that her half-sister can marry better and more gloriously than her, while she herself cannot even get married. She feels at ease to blame Su Wan for this. Because of the madness of that night, Su Wan successfully experienced morning sickness more than a month later. She became pregnant almost at the same time as Sun Linger. When her monthly payment didn't come on time, she knew she had won the prize. A moment I was both excited and nervous. The three of them have moved next door to the Su Mansion, which has become the new Duke's Mansion, and the original old house was left to Jiang Yan. Jiang Yan was assigned a shop and began to manage it seriously to generate revenue, otherwise the huge mansion would not be able to withstand the expenses. When Jiang Yu learned that Su Wan was pregnant, his expression changed from daze to excitement, from excitement to disbelief, from disbelief to excitement, from excitement to nervousness, and finally, he accepted the reality. He held her in his arms, gently, as if he was treating some rare treasure. Great, we have a baby. Let's tell my parents-in-law the good news. Well, and your father. Sun Linga had just announced that she was pregnant, and Su Wan also had good news right after that. During this time, the Su family was really busy. With so many pregnant women, Su's mother would wake up laughing in her dreams. I have several grandchildren, so happy. I will take care of them in the future. The good sisters got married at the same time and they got pregnant at the same time. Su Wan and Sun Linger are really good sisters. The Duke heard that his daughter-in-law was pregnant. He happily went to Jiang Xinruo's tablet with a glass of wine and told her the good news. He also sent a message to Zhongzhou so that his grandfather could be happy too. Su Wan had a very difficult pregnancy. Not only could she not have any oil or water, but she was also always retching. He couldn't eat or sleep well, which was in stark contrast to Sun Linger who could eat, drink, and sleep well. After the new year, Zhang Yunian was assigned by the emperor to the Ministry of Justice to work with Morong Huai. The emperor did this on purpose. He knew that Jiang Yu was Morong Huai's right-hand man, so he sent him to the Ministry of Justice. In the eyes of the Queen and Morong Rue, this move seemed very deliberate. This old guy had been secretly supporting Morong Huai. Jiang Yu works in the Ministry of Justice every day and has to think about Su Wan. Although Su's mother and others are taking care of her, he is still not at ease because her morning sickness is too severe. Dan Shun Qingli's previous morning sickness, and at this critical moment, she had caught a cold and was coughing nonstop. She couldn't take any medicine, otherwise it would be bad for the fetus. So, the whole family revolved around her all day long. Sue's mother stayed with her all the time. Sumu took her pulse 3 times a day, and Soo-yeon prepared food for her in different ways, hoping that the little ant could eat a bite. Soo-chin searched all over the world for some snacks for her, including sour, bitter, and salty ones, but she just couldn't eat them. Less than 2 months into her pregnancy, Soo-won lost weight instead of gaining weight. She is pregnant with Neza, right? Jong-yu came home from work every day. He saw her in such pain and felt endless heartache. No one told him that pregnancy is so hard. If that were the case, he wouldn't dare to have a second child. Fortunately, 2 months later, Soo-won's morning sickness symptoms began to ease, the cold healed on its own, and she gradually began to feel better. I can eat something now, but still can't eat anything too greasy. The chicken soup is delivered to me every day, and I have to skim off all the oil foam on it. Life in the 2 mansions was relatively busy, but things were beginning to get uneasy in the previous dynasty. I heard that the imperial concubine fell out of favor a few years ago, and the emperor took in a new beauty when the year was coming to an end. This beauty jumped to the rank of Jowie in just 2 months. This speed of promotion is unprecedented and will never be repeated. The emperor is always listless when he goes to court every day. Compared with his past energy, he always looks like he hasn't gotten enough sleep. Imperial concubine is old, and after all, she is not as charming as the young beauties. However, the emperor is a very rational man. Why would he suddenly be bewitched by beauty? Since this Jowie was favored, the emperor's workability has also deteriorated. In the past, the memorials submitted could be replied in the afternoon at the earliest, and there would be news by the next morning at the latest. But now, for several days in a row, the ministers saw the emperor like this. They all spoke up to persuade him to take his health into consideration and not overwork himself. But this aroused the emperor's anger. He felt that they thought he was old, so they said such things. This was related to his dignity as a man, and he was very angry. He even said in the hall, "I have been tired all my life. Do I need to ask you about taking a concubine now?" A good person suddenly seemed to have gone possessed and refused to listen to advice. Logically speaking, it doesn't exist, right? After Jeong-yu left the court, he talked about this matter with Duke Jeong during lunch. Duke Jeong was not in the court now, but he still needed to keep track of what was going on in the court. Upon hearing the news, Duke Jeong couldn't help but frown. He has been with the emperor for decades. Although he doesn't know the emperor very well, he at least understands him 70% well. He is not someone who would be blinded by lust, so it must be unusual for him to suddenly become like this. Even when he doted on the imperial noble consort, it wasn't to this extent. Where did this evil woman Nyejawi come from? Soo-won's appetite has improved a lot recently, so Soo-mu gave her a diet list. Now she eats according to the list every day to make up for all the losses she had suffered before. Hearing the emperor's abnormal behavior, Soo-won couldn't help but think of the original novel, in which the emperor was poisoned by Ling-chi and his health deteriorated day by day, and he died in just 3 years. However, now the plot seems to be wrong. In the original novel, the emperor does not have Nyejawi at all. There is no such NPC at all. There must be something wrong when something is abnormal. It seems that Soo-won needs to contact Morong-hwai. Coincidentally, Morong-hwai also thought so, but he was more direct. He came without saying hello and specifically told Jeong-yu that he wanted to see Soo-won. Jeong-yu knew that these two must have a secret, and Morong-hwai did not hide it from him, which showed that he trusted Jeong-yu very much, and he also believed that Jeong-yu trusted him very much. Soo-won was led by Jeong-yu to the study room, where Morong-hwai was waiting, tapping the table with his fingers. He seemed to be in a bad mood. "You guys chat, I'll wait for you outside." Jeong-yu brought the person in, and then went out. He didn't seem to mind being alone with his partner at all. Morong-hwai saw Soo-won. He seemed to feel a little more at ease. His father's behavior, so he came to ask Soo-won, who had a god's perspective. Soo-won also roughly guessed what he was here for. Morong-hwai saw it with his own eyes today. He went to look for his father, only to discover that his father was drinking and listening to music in the hall, with a very charming woman in a blue dancer's costume in his arms. The woman leaned in her father's arms, weak and boneless. Her lips were as red as fire, and the accessories on her body were so dazzling that they could blind people's eyes. Now, and my father himself has issued an order that everyone should not be too extravagant and should keep everything simple in order to mourn the late crown prince. As a result, he broke the rules himself, which made Morong Hwai very uncomfortable. Isn't this the same as being possessed by evil spirits? He tried to give advice with good intentions, but was scolded by his father. He was upset, so he came to Suwon and asked her to help analyze the situation. My friend, I want to ask if there is a person named Niejawi in the book? Suwon shook his head directly. There is no such person as Niejawi. I just heard about it and was wondering about it. I wanted to remind you to be careful of the queen and her son. After all, in the book, after the death of the first crown prince, the emperor intended to support Morong Shung to ascend to the throne. The queen and her son were jealous, so they poisoned the emperor with Ling Qi later. The queen and her son were jealous, so they poisoned the emperor with Ling Qi later. My second brother cured him, but despite this, he only lived for less than 3 years afterwards. Now the plot has completely changed. This sudden appearance of Niejawi and the abnormal behavior of the emperor all indicate that something must be wrong. I think you should find a way to let my second brother go to the palace and let the emperor take a good look to see if there is any suspicion of poisoning. Suwon was just thinking that this incident had just... But this is exactly where Morong Hwai is helpless. Father is now particularly resistant to having people see him. Apart from the daily checkup of his pulse by the imperial physician, he won't let anyone see him. But the imperial physician said that father's pulse is stable and there is nothing wrong, but I still feel something is wrong. Moreover, he simply cannot stand people telling him to take care of himself. At the very least, he will scold you, and at the worst, he will have you dragged out and beheaded. Do you know the servant Liu, who used to serve my father? Just because he said something like this, my father was so angry that he put him in jail. Servant Liu served him for 40 years. It's hard to judge him. Morong Hwai complained about his father, looking helpless. Isn't it because you have no other choice that you come to Suwon for help in analyzing the situation? Suwon pondered for a moment, and she sorted out these things. What is the queen's attitude? What attitude could she have? I don't know if she was pretending or it was real. She has met with the emperor several times and gave him frank advice, but he has confined her to her room. If she did it, I can only say that she is a good actor. If it's fake, I don't think it's fake. The queen has tried to clear herself of the matter. If anything goes wrong, she can just say that she has been under house arrest as a shield, and no one will have evidence to say that she did it. According to what you said, there must be something wrong with that imperial physician. He must have been bribed. I'm not saying anything bad, but your father is so old and still indulges himself every day, drinking and staying up late. Even if his body is strong, it will soon become weak. You should know what it means to be a gentle knife that cuts people's lives, right? As he got older, what he feared most was dying at the hands of a woman. And from hearing Morong Hwai's description, it seemed that the emperor had completely fallen into it. This beauty trap can be said to be the fastest and most effective way to kill time. After hearing what Suwon said, Morong Hwai became even more anxious. We have to think about this matter carefully. I will think of a way to get father to agree to see Dr. Su. At least if he comes to the palace, we can have a chance to check whether he is really poisoned or drugged. Morong Hwai asked his questions clearly, and then left in a daze. Suwon could only tell him what she knew, but she couldn't help much with this kind of thing. Now she just wanted to give birth to her child safely and healthily. After she became pregnant, her temper became much more restrained. Jiangyu sent Morong Hwai out of the house and didn't ask anything after he came back. Suwon thought he would ask a few questions. He didn't ask, and Suwon didn't plan to say it on his own initiative. Now he is on duty in the Ministry of Justice and has a lot of things to do every day. After he is done, he will come back to accompany me. Jiangyu has always known that there is a secret between Morong Hwai and Suwon, but he never takes the initiative to pry into it, but chooses to believe it unconditionally. what the emperor had done, so they jointly wrote a letter to the emperor, saying that Niejiao was a witch and was hindering state affairs. The emperor's behavior is irresponsible. He neglects state affairs for the sake of beauty. If Taizu and Gaozu are still alive, they will definitely rebuke you severely. Only one person submits a petition. The emperor can offend that person if he wants to. But if all the ministers submit a petition together, he can't kill all of them, right? In the court are no pushovers. Their existence is not only to supervise all officials, but also to supervise the emperor. If the emperor does something inappropriate, they can give him frank advice. These censors were notoriously annoying. They said bluntly that if the emperor continued to neglect state affairs for Niejiao, they would continue to petition the emperor and risk their own lives to execute the evil concubine. Maybe Niejiao was also afraid and no longer pestered the emperor like before, and she restrained herself a little. The emperor also listened to some of the advice and is now reviewing memorials more diligently than before. From his ministers, the emperor was temporarily less absurd, but within a few months, it was visibly apparent that the emperor's complexion began to become sallow, and he became thinner and listless. That is, no matter what Morong Huai said, he refused to see Su Mu and refused to let him take a look at him. There is another thing, that is Chun Fei, the former imperial noble consort. She came to see the emperor several times, but was stopped by Niejiao. So she exercised her rights as imperial concubine to teach this little Jiao a lesson. Since the queen was under house arrest, she has been in charge of the harem. Can't she punish Niejiao for being unruly? So, she ordered someone to slap Niejiao in the face. However, after just a few slaps, the emperor got angry and, regardless of their past friendship, demoted her 2 levels. Now she is the consort Chun. Concubine Chun has been the emperor's most beloved concubine for the past 20 years. Has the emperor ever treated her like this? She also felt very humiliated, so after returning to the palace, she never wanted to come out again and cried every day. Of course, Morong Huai was not in a good situation either. His father had been dissatisfied with everything about him recently and always scolded him in front of all the ministers. It was obvious that he had done nothing wrong, and even saying something was wrong. Compared with his previous favoritism towards him, the gap he felt now was really sad. Not only Morong Huai, but even Morong Sheng was often scolded by the emperor for no reason. On the contrary, the emperor always praised the inconspicuous third prince Murong Rue for his kind character and being the most humane. As if he was under a spell, Murong Huai proposed several times to bring Su Mu into the palace to check his pulse, but was sternly rejected every time, and then he was severely scolded. Everyone now knows that Niejiao is a sinister concubine who brought disaster to the country, and people are cursing her constantly. This dragged on for another month, and no one dared to get into trouble. Murong Huai did not dare to be too ostentatious. If he was not careful, he might even lose his position as prince. This was also what his mother told him. The emperor was being too abnormal, so it would be better for him to stay out of the spotlight for the time being. In the blink of an eye, Shun Qingli was about to have an attack, and all the midwives and wet nurses in the mansion came into action. She was about to give birth, and the whole family stood at the door, listening to her crying heart-wrenchingly inside. Su Jing felt his heart aching. When Su Mu and Su Yun heard how painful it was for their eldest sister-in-law to give birth, they couldn't help but think that their own wives would also have to give birth soon, and by then they would also feel as much pain as their eldest sister-in-law was feeling now. Su Wan was fine. She always knew that giving birth was painful. Jiang Yu had been very busy recently, and no one knew what he was busy with, so he was not present. If he had also heard that giving birth is such a great suffering for a woman, he would probably feel sorry for Su Wan and feel very sorry for her. Shun Qingli felt pain from morning to night, and finally, she heard the baby crying. The baby cried very loudly and with full energy, which also showed that the baby was very healthy. It was a boy, weighing more than 7 kilograms. After confirming that the child was safe, Shun Qingli fell asleep due to exhaustion. After the delivery room was cleaned, everyone could go in to see my sister-in-law. She was already asleep, and the baby was wrapped in a swaddle. The wet nurse had just fed him, and now he was sleeping soundly after eating. Su Jing looked at the child, his face full of tenderness. Su's mother knelt in the ancestral hall for a whole day, praying for the safety of mother and child. When someone came to tell her the good news that her eldest daughter-in-law had given her a grandson, Su's mother cried with joy. That's great. This is the first child of the Su family's generation. She has finally become a grandmother. Su Jing named the child Su Huayu. Everyone in the Su family was very happy about the addition of a new baby. Aunt Su Wan and uncles like Su Mu all prepared gifts for the little baby who had just come into the world. The gifts they gave included longevity locks, gold necklaces, bracelets, and anklets, all of which were exquisite and beautiful. Words like peace, health, and good luck, which have good meanings. By the time the baby is out of confinement, the 6-month national mourning period will have been over, and then we can hold the full-month banquet. Su-won has been pregnant for more than 3 months and now has a good appetite every day. Everyone was in pairs, and Su-yi began to count the betrothal gifts, preparing for his next trip to Xiangzhou to fulfill his promise to Luo Shiju. It's just a pity for the third brother. He has to keep waiting. It's another half-year before the royal family can marry each other. Now that the emperor is like this, it's probably even more difficult for Prince Yang to ask. The current emperor has a bad temper and is easily angered. No one dares to provoke him for fear of being offended by accident. His condition is getting worse and worse. He used to attend court every day, but now he doesn't even go to court. He is immersed in the gentle arms of concubine Li every day. Yes, Nie Jiaoyi is now concubine Li. She is arrogant and domineering in the harem. She looks down on everyone and does not take anyone seriously. The emperor's spirit was getting worse and worse, and his eyes were severely bruised, as if he had not slept well. Everyone was afraid that he would suddenly collapse one day. However, no one expected that day to come so soon. When the emperor was attending court, he stood up too hard and fell down. The ministers were terribly frightened and stayed in the Hall of Supreme Harmony, worried about the emperor's safety. The emperor has not yet appointed a crown prince. If he falls, according to ancestral rules, the first heir to the throne will be the virtuous king. But the wise king is obviously not someone who can shoulder such a big responsibility. The emperor fell ill, and the entire imperial hospital was mobilized. The empress did not care about much else, and lifted her house arrest on her own to come and take charge of the situation. The imperial physician said that the emperor was in serious health and might not be able to continue to take care of state affairs. So the queen said directly that the country cannot be without a monarch for a day, and the emperor is in poor health and should not be in charge of state affairs anymore. So according to the ancestral rules, the legitimate and wise prince should temporarily manage state affairs. Morong Huai knew that he could no longer sit there and wait for death. The result was obvious. It was the queen's conspiracy. He ruined the emperor's health, and then naturally supported his son to ascend the throne. Murong Shing looked at him, and the two naturally formed a united front. Now they have to unanimously direct their attacks against the queen and Murong Rue, otherwise, neither of them will stand a chance. Murong Huai immediately sent someone out of the palace to invite Su Mu. How could the queen not know what he wanted to do? So, he sent people to stop them in every possible way, not allowing Morong Huai's men to leave the palace. But she still underestimated Morong Huai. Jiang Yu and Su Mu were already on their way to the palace. He had already guessed that this day would come, so he asked Jiang Yu and Su Mu to be prepared at all times. My father has been bewitched and does not allow anyone to get close to him except concubine Li. The servant who serves him personally has also been replaced. Concubine Li almost lived in the Purple Palace, serving the emperor every day. Except for attending court, the emperor seldom saw anyone. He stayed in the Purple Palace all day with concubine Li. The queen also put on a full show. After the emperor got into trouble, she immediately had concubine Li arrested and put into jail. Mother, my father looks very uncomfortable. I would like to invite the little doctor to the palace to treat him. Huai made this request in front of all the civil and military officials. When the queen heard this, she was in great trouble. If Sumu was allowed to come, many things might not be kept secret. So she could only delay it and push her son to the position of regent first. As long as he is in power and acts as regent, he will have the overall situation in control and can use the ancestral regulations to shut the mouths of these censors. The imperial physician has already said that the emperor is seriously ill. It will be the same if we ask the little doctor to come over. Besides, I am in charge of the overall situation here. Why are you panicking? The emperor cannot govern the country, and we don't have a crown prince. According to the rules of our ancestors, the legitimate and virtuous prince should be the regent and temporarily manage the government. Ruer, come up quickly. The queen was very strong. She directly asked Morong Rue to come up and had someone bring the imperial seal over. She was going to give the seal to him directly and let him take the position of regent in a natural way. However, the ministers all knew that the virtuous king was not fit to be an emperor, and it was ridiculous to make him the regent. At this time, the ministers began to unify their ideas, but they could not confront the queen head-on. Since it is the ancestral regulations, they also use the ancestral regulations to speak. Empress, our ancestors' rules say that the eldest son should be appointed first and the legitimate son second. Before the virtuous king, there was a Prince Yong, the second son of the emperor. The former crown prince has passed away, so Prince Yong is the eldest. Even if we follow the ancestral rules, Prince Yong should be the regent. It was the right prime minister who spoke. When the queen heard what he said, she glared at him with an unpleasant look on her face. Prince Yong is a soft-hearted man who is timid and hesitant to act. Being the regent is no joke. Can he understand the memorials? Therefore, the virtuous prince is the most suitable prince to be the regent. Empress, if you say so, you want to find a prince with outstanding abilities to serve as regent, but the virtuous prince has no achievements, no political talent, and even little experience in the court. If we are to judge by ability, the princes of Jin and Sun are more suitable than the virtuous prince. What do you mean? Are you questioning my decision? I have said that the virtuous king is the most suitable candidate to be the regent. Come here. Lord Qin is committing treason and making outrageous remarks. Take him out and beat him to death. Seeing that she couldn't win the argument, the queen decided to kill an example to scare the monkeys. Today, she was going to use tough measures to support her son to ascend to the throne. She is the queen. Now that the emperor has fallen, she should be in charge of the overall situation. With the imperial seal in her hand, who dares not listen to her? Evil queen, you are worthy of death. The emperor is seriously ill now. I am afraid it is because of you. The virtuous king is incompetent and unworthy of the position. I am not wrong. He is not worthy, and neither are you. He is not even as good as the former crown prince, nor as good as the king of Jin and the king of Sun. Don't you want people to say anything? Since when did a woman like you have the final say in government affairs? The censor who was dragged out was so angry that he dared to say everything. He was going to die anyway, so he had to die. Before he died, he had to speak out what was in his heart. The queen was shaking with anger and became furious. She stood up and pointed at the censor named Qin. He is talking nonsense. He deserves death. Cut him into 5 pieces. Evil queen, you shall not die a hapless death. The censor shouted this before he was dragged out of the hall. Soon after, his shrill screams were heard. In an instant, everyone in the court was in panic, and everyone was controlled by a queen who seemed to be crazy. Everyone knew that it would not work if they went up one by one, so someone took the lead. The right and left ministers knelt on the ground together, and the right minister shouted, "It is a misfortune for the country. It is a misfortune for the country. The evil queen is in power. She has ruined the fortune of our Jin country and ruined the government of our Jin country. We will not recognize the wise king as the regent." With someone taking the lead, there are also many righteous people in the court. They have dedicated their whole lives to the Jin state, and now they cannot watch the Jin state fall into an irretrievable situation. All the civil and military officials knelt down and threatened that if the virtuous king was allowed to govern the country, they would all be killed. Only the Duke of Tang's mansion supported Morong Rue. The queen was the Duke of Tang's sister, so he was the first to support the queen, and he was the only one who did not kneel down. When Murong Rue saw this scene, he realized how embarrassing he was in front of these ministers. It turns out that everyone looked down on him and thought he was not as good as his brother, but he was also born to the queen mother, and he was also the legitimate son of the emperor, right? Since you feel sorry for your royal brother, then why can't his younger brother be the regent? Mother, kill them all. After all, we can appoint new ministers after they die. There are many who are willing to take their positions. He was indeed so angry that he lost his mind. The people in the court were complicated and interconnected, and each position played a vital role. Killing one or two is fine, but if you kill them all, the country will be in chaos and will not be able to function. If it were so easy to become an official, there wouldn't be so many students spending their entire lives preparing for the imperial examinations. The queen could only force herself to calm down. She glared at Murong Rue and told him to shut up. You all look down on my son, but it doesn't matter. As long as the emperor likes him, that's all. The virtuous prince is the prince that the emperor values. He has already issued an imperial decree to enthrone my son, the virtuous prince, as the crown prince. You have to acknowledge it even if you don't want to. Someone, go get the imperial edict and read it to them to see if the virtuous prince is worthy of being the regent and the crown prince. It is impossible that the queen only made one preparation. She had another one. This was obviously her second-hand preparation. If everything went smoothly, there would be no need to take out the imperial edict. After all, this imperial edict was not clean. But the emperor was in a coma and could not wake up at all. The imperial edict was stamped with the national seal and was written by the emperor himself. It was impossible for them, the ministers, to fail to recognize his handwriting. Look carefully. This handwriting was written word by the emperor, and the imperial seal on it cannot be faked. I originally thought that the emperor was just unwell, and the imperial edict to appoint the prince should be announced by him personally, but you kept forcing me, so I had no choice but to take it out in advance to shut you up. The queen couldn't help but curl her lips into a smile and ordered someone to read the imperial edict. Beside the emperor began to read it out in public, and it indeed said that the virtuous Prince Murong Rue was to be appointed as the crown prince of the Eastern Palace. The ministers heard this. They were all in disbelief, because this was simply too outrageous. The emperor could not possibly be so outrageous. The wise king is totally unworthy of his position. How can we tell that he is both virtuous and talented? How can we tell that he is kind and honest? This is impossible. Demon Queen, you forged the imperial edict. Do you know what crime you are committing? This is a heinous crime that will kill all 9 generations of your clan. The most stubborn one was the right prime minister. He called the queen a witch all the time and was the first one to question the queen. Su Jing knelt in the crowd. He really didn't expect today's situation. Everything happened too suddenly. In such situations, he couldn't say anything and was afraid of saying something wrong, so he could only go with the flow. But it is obvious that all this has something to do with the queen, and it was premeditated. If the right prime minister doesn't believe me, then take a closer look. Is this the emperor's handwriting? The emperor's handwriting is very special and has its own unique style. You shouldn't be able to recognize the emperor's handwriting, right? The queen had the imperial edict taken to the right prime minister for a careful look and then showed it to other ministers. After reading it, the right prime minister collapsed on the ground, repeating "impossible" to himself. This handwriting is indeed the emperor's, exactly the same. He himself is the most professional handwriting appraiser and can see that there is no trace of imitation. The imperial seal above was indeed stamped with the emperor's jade seal. The hall suddenly fell into a strange silence. Murong Sheng clenched his hands tightly, and he exchanged glances with Murong Huai. It seemed that he himself had not expected that one day it would be the idiot King Murong Rue who would make a name for himself. Mainly, the queen's acting is so good. He always regarded Murong Huai as his biggest opponent, and thus ignored Murong Rue and the queen. Murong Huai thought to himself, "You see, I am useless. The queen is so vicious and has completely controlled my father. The emperor is the supreme ruler, and what he says is unquestionable. It's not that he is unwilling to work hard, but the truth is that his father has lost his mind, and you can't get close to him at all. If you could get close to her, but I don't know who this evil concubine Li is, or what's so special about her that could make a rational person like my father go crazy overnight. Murong Huai suddenly thought of the emperors in TV dramas whose minds were bewitched by fox, but are there really fox in this world? But it doesn't matter. Murong Huai still has a trump card. Jiang Yu took Su Mu into the palace smoothly and went straight to the Hall of Supreme Harmony. Inside the Hall of Supreme Harmony, Murong Rue had already sat on the dragon throne holding the imperial seal. With the imperial edict, everything is justified. He looked at all the officials with a smile, not hiding his pride at all. The Duke of Tang was the first to surrender. Your Highness, may your Highness live 1,000 years and 1,000,000 years. The honor of the Duke of Tang's mansion has always relied on the fact that it has a queen and a crown prince. They knew very well that only if the prince born by the queen ascended to the throne of crown prince could their Duke Tang's mansion continue their glory. As long as they are not convinced, he will be convinced. The current situation is very clear. This imperial edict will be able to shut them all up. Just when some of the ministers were beginning to waver and accept their fate, Jiang Yu suddenly brought Su Mu into the hall. Wait a minute. The reason for His Majesty's coma has not yet been determined, and you are thinking about seizing power now. Isn't that bad? The queen was a little confused when she saw Su Mu appear here. Didn't she already give the order for the imperial guards to stop them and not let them enter the palace? Why did he come anyway? When Murong Rue saw Jiang Yu and Su Mu, his heart skipped a beat. He held the armrests of the dragon throne tightly, feeling a little nervous. After all, if the tricks they used on their father were discovered, how dare you break in without permission?
Drag them out now.
The queen had just sat down, but she had to stand up again, pointing at Jiang Yu and Su Mu and shouting. Immediately rushed in from outside, ready to take the two of them out. Let's see who dares. Murong Huai took action. He took out a token and held it in his hand, then walked towards the imperial guards step by step. This token made of black iron is the band that can mobilize the imperial guards. The imperial guards only obey the emperor and guard the palace and the emperor's safety, but there is something that can command them, and that is the imperial guard's order. The emperor is now unconscious, so they will naturally follow the imperial guard's orders. Seeing the token clearly, the leading imperial guard immediately knelt down on one knee and clasped his fists with his subordinates. This reversal was somewhat unexpected. Murong Huai curled his lips into a smile, then turned to look at the queen and Murong Rue sitting above him. Pass my imperial army order to seal off the Hall of Supreme Harmony. No one is allowed to enter or leave. Anyone who violates the order will be executed. Murong Huai, you are so bold that you dare to forge the imperial army order. Don't listen to him. He forged it. Arrest him for me. The queen is not anxious at this time, then something fishy is going on. Controlling the imperial guards is equivalent to controlling the imperial palace. These imperial guards only obey the emperor's orders and only follow the form of the imperial guard's orders. Now, even Prince Murong Rue is useless. However, the imperial guards remained unmoved, and the area outside the Hall of Supreme Harmony was soon surrounded by a crowd of people. What are you still standing there for? Arrest him and execute him immediately. Murong Rue didn't care about much at this moment and became desperate. Mother, third brother, this imperial army order was given to me by my father himself, for fear of unexpected events. You have calculated everything, but you didn't expect this step to happen, right? The imperial guard's order is made of black iron, which cannot be broken or smashed. Black iron is a forbidden item, only available in the imperial palace and in very small quantities. If you want to take it, you must get my father's approval. This is the genuine imperial guard's order. Now I suspect that there is another reason behind my father's coma, so I ask the little doctor to come to the palace and check it carefully for my father. Prince Jiang, take the little doctor into the inner hall. I will see who dares to stop you. Upon hearing this, Jiang Yu took Su Mu directly into the inner hall. The servant wanted to stop him, but Zhongyu kicked him several meters away, and he fell directly on the pillar carved with dragon patterns. The queen collapsed on the chair in an instant. Murong-sheng, who was sitting below her, narrowed his eyes and looked at Murong-hwai in confusion. My father actually gave him the Imperial Guard order. Could it be that when he was conscious, he had always intended for Murong-hwai to be the crown prince? He had made over such a long time become a joke? His fists clenched tighter and tighter. The situation in the Hall of Supreme Harmony kept changing. Everyone showed off their skills, but he looked like a clown, being played by everyone without knowing what was going on. He was actually thinking about temporarily forming a united front with Murong-hwai to fight against the queen. Now it seems that not only he is a joke, but the queen and the others are even more so. As soon as Su-mu arrived, all the imperial doctors were controlled by the imperial guards, and he had enough space to treat the emperor. First, he took the emperor's pulse. After Su-mu felt the emperor's pulse, his brows were tightly furrowed. Murong-hwai and his men have already come in, but the queen and her men are still being held outside. Without saying too much, Su-mu began to give acupuncture to the emperor. After looking at his pupils, he took out the silver needles. The emperor's upper body clothes were removed, and the silver needles were densely inserted into his body and head. At the same time, Su-mu wrote a prescription and asked Murong-hwai to arrange someone he could trust to prepare the medicine to detoxify the emperor. The poison that the emperor was infected with was indeed a charm poison, and it was an extremely powerful one. After doing all this, Su-mu finally had time to explain everything to Murong-hwai. Just at this time, the commander of the Imperial Guards came in. He knelt at Murong-hwai's feet and reported, "Your Highness Prince Sun, I have followed your instructions and went to the prison. As you expected, someone wanted to kill Concubine Li. I arrived in time and rescued the person, but Concubine Li was stabbed twice and her life is in danger. The assassin bit his tongue and committed suicide, and he could not be saved. The queen must have known that the situation was not right, so she wanted to kill Concubine Li to silence her. Once Concubine Li died, there was no evidence to prove the crime. In this way, no one could testify against them, and their guilt was greatly reduced. Where is Concubine Li? Can she be saved? Murong-hwai must kill the queen and Murong-rue in one move, and Concubine Li is a crucial person. If she is alive, can the queen be convicted of murdering the emperor, making it impossible for her to turn things around? Someone has been assigned to treat him, but the situation is not good. The commander of the Imperial Guards was a little embarrassed. Su-mu took out a porcelain bottle, poured out 2 black pills and gave them to the commander of the Imperial Guards. Give her this medicine. It is a healing pill that has a very good effect in stopping bleeding. It should be able to save her life. Su-mu knew without even looking that it was due to excessive blood loss. Commander of the Imperial Guards took the pill and immediately ran out to save people. Dr. Su, it's really thanks to you being here. Murong-hwai thanked God. You don't have to be polite, Prince Sun. It's my duty. Su-mu still had to bow his head in front of the imperial power. Moreover, he didn't want the country to fall into the hands of a fool, otherwise the people would suffer. By the way, little doctor, what's the situation with my father? Murong-hwai watched Su-mu's operations and his brows were so tight that he could pretend to be a dead fly. Su-mu drank a cup of tea slowly and explained, "Thanks to my master's travels for several years, we have seen and heard a lot. There is a place called Nanjiang on the border of our Jin country. It is a very mysterious place. The people in Nanjiang are good at using poisons. Among them, there is a kind of charm poison called Huarong that is particularly famous. This is a kind of goo poison. The poisoned person will become extremely lustful in a short period of time and easily be charmed by beauty. Moreover, this poison needs to be controlled by a goo worm, which can confuse his mind and make him do many things he wants. If he resists subconsciously, he will suffer the pain of gnawing at his heart. He may be conscious, but his actions will still be in accordance with the instructions of the goo worm." After Su-mu said this, Murong-hwai could understand why his father had behaved abnormally in the past few months. It turned out that she was manipulated. No wonder the queen could produce an edict written by her father himself. Fortunately, his father was alert and gave him the Imperial Guard's token in advance. Otherwise, he would have been in big trouble. After Morong Rue seizes power, the ending that awaits him will not be a good one. He will not die, but will suffer heavy consequences. Well, little doctor, can you cure this poison? Morong Huai still didn't want anything to happen to his father. Sumu nodded. What a coincidence. My master's wife is from southern Xinjiang. She should be able to remove the poison, but the main thing is to protect concubine Li. She is the one holding the poison, and her poisonous insect is needed to remove it. Please, Prince Sun, go and bring my master's wife to the palace. Dr. Sun and his wife now live in the private house they bought for Sun Linger. They can just go and bring Grandma Yi Qinggu into the palace. Concubine Li took Sumu's medicine and saved her life. Now, we just have to wait for her to wake up. The queen received a series of bad news, and she couldn't bear it anymore and fainted. It's over, it's all over. Her plan might have failed this time, and the Duke Tang's mansion would be implicated as well. The emperor's father hasn't woken up yet, so Morong Huai can't deal with the queen and her son directly now. He can only put them under house arrest temporarily and wait for his father to wake up before deciding what to do next. Sumu said that the emperor had been seriously injured this time, and the loss was serious. Even if the poison was removed, he would probably not live for many years. Morong Huai nodded. This result was the best one. It was almost the same ending as the original novel, except the process was different. Morong Huai gave the order to release Servant Liu from the prison. After Servant Liu came out, the first thing he did was to kneel in front of Morong Huai and tell a story. 1 month after the death of the previous crown prince, the emperor drafted a crown prince edict, appointing Prince Sun Morong Huai as the crown prince. The edict is hidden behind the plaque, working hard for the people, in the Purple Palace. This was the emperor's order to Servant Liu that if an uncontrollable situation arose, the imperial edict should be brought out to allow the 7th prince to take power directly. But unexpectedly, the queen and her son directly controlled the emperor, threw him into prison, and replaced him with their own people. Fortunately, the queen was not so cruel as to execute him directly. In the Tianlao, Servant Liu was trembling with fear all day long. He also knew very well that at this time, he should not talk about the imperial edict anymore for fear of bringing disaster upon himself. But now that he's been released, the first thing he does is to help Prince Sun become the crown prince. Yi Qinggu was soon summoned into the palace. After Li Fei woke up, she cooperated and handed over the insect. However, when she was questioned and asked who asked her to do so, Li Fei did not answer. There was a deadly poison hidden in her fingernails. After handing over the insect, she immediately committed suicide by taking the poison and refused to confess the queen's crime. Morong Huai guessed that the queen still had some evidence against her, so she was unwilling to reveal the mastermind until her death. Yi Qinggu successfully cured the emperor of the poison, and with the help of Su Mu's miraculous healing skills, he successfully saved his life. However, he was too weak and couldn't wake up for a while. Morong Huai ascended the throne of the crown prince and naturally became the regent, temporarily taking charge of state affairs. The matter came to an end, and Morong Huai was the biggest beneficiary of this incident. On the contrary, Morong Rue was doomed to fail, and Morong Sheng had already lost half the battle the moment he announced Morong Huai as the crown prince. But he still refused to accept and was unwilling to give in. If nothing unexpected happens, after the emperor wakes up, he will have to go to his fiefdom and will no longer be allowed to stay in the capital. Guyu has been pregnant for 5 months and has difficulty moving. She is also unaware of the situation in the palace, but when the news came out that Morong Huai was appointed as the crown prince, she also knew that she would have no chance of becoming the queen. The emperor woke up 3 days later, during which time concubine Chen stayed by his side and took care of him. As the saying goes, a friend in need is a friend indeed. The concubine Chen is somewhat sincere towards the emperor. The emperor demoted her to a concubine. She did not feel any resentment in her heart. She always believed that the emperor had his own reasons. Sure enough, the emperor suffered a great punishment. The emperor woke up. He saw concubine Qin beside him and felt as if he was in another world. His first words were, "Oh, I'm sorry for wronging you." This sentence broke the defense of concubine Qin, and her tears fell like beads from a broken string. "Your Majesty, I am not wronged. As long as you are well, I will not be wronged in any way." Only at this moment did the emperor feel that his consciousness was under his own control. That woman is so terrible. She always controls me and makes me do some ridiculous things and say some absurd words. Now he can finally control himself, but he feels a sense of powerlessness all over his body. After this incident, I'm afraid his health will be ruined. Because there was no conclusive evidence or witnesses to point the finger at the crime, the queen and her son did not deserve the death penalty. But the charge of falsely conveying the imperial edict is ironclad. The emperor ordered that the empress be demoted to a commoner and sent to the cold palace, and that the virtuous prince be imprisoned in the virtuous prince's mansion, never to leave. All the female members of Duke Tang's family were reduced to servantry, and the male members were exiled 3,000 miles away. This is the consequence of daring to defy the imperial authority. The glory of several generations of the Tang family has since fallen into decline. It seemed that the fate of the queen and the virtuous king was already very gratifying, but at this time, another key figure appeared and threw a huge rock onto the heads of the queen and the virtuous king, smashing them hard into the mud. The crown princess wore mourning clothes, took off her hairpins, and came to ask for an audience with the emperor. She wanted to sue the virtuous king for murdering the former crown prince. She had both witnesses and material evidence, and the evidence was solid. Before one wave of troubles is over, another wave of troubles arises. The various actions of Empress Tang in the Hall of Supreme Harmony still make many people feel scared when they think about them now. Now the former crown princess has come out and revealed such a thing, which is undoubtedly a bolt from the blue. Originally, the title of the wise king could still be retained, but now I am afraid that even the title cannot be retained. First, the crown princess took out the secret letter that Zhou Liangdi had given her before her death, as well as all the necessary evidence. A pile of letters, all of which were written by the wise king over the years, asking her to tamper with the diet of the late crown prince, and the words were full of threats. This is the mastermind behind the food poisoning of the late crown prince. The late crown prince died young, all because of his younger brother. Not only that, the former crown princess also brought Zhou Liangdi's family as witnesses, accusing the virtuous king of how he coerced them to threaten Zhou Liangdi. It is an indisputable fact that the virtuous king murdered the late crown prince. The late crown princess requests the emperor to punish the virtuous king and give an explanation to the late crown prince. She didn't understand why the late crown prince was trying to protect his mother and brother before his death, but she was really angry. Zhou Liangdi chose to hand over the evidence to her and told her that if possible, please fulfill the crown prince's wish and let this secret never be made public. This time, the queen rebelled, and the emperor, considering their decades of marriage, chose to spare her life, but only banished her to the cold palace. As for Morong Rui, he was not worthy of the position of the virtuous king, and it was an insult to the word virtuous. The late crown princess was so angry. Why did such a talented person as the late crown prince end up like this? If she doesn't make the virtuous king pay the price, she will never have peace in her life, so she chose to go to the palace and report Morong Rui. The emperor heard about this. He was so angry that he spat out a mouthful of blood. His health had recovered a little, but now he fell ill again. He ordered that Morong Rui be stripped of his title of King Xian and be given poisoned wine. Morong Rui was forced to drink poison by a group of people. He was no longer a prince, but just a commoner. He was not even worthy of being buried in the imperial mausoleum after his death. Not only that, he also implicated his wife, concubines, and several children, and all of them were exiled. When the queen in the cold palace heard this, she felt like she was falling into an ice cellar and was heartbroken. She never thought that her eldest son was killed by her younger son. She was still thinking about supporting her son to take the throne. In despair, within a few days, news came from the cold palace that the deposed queen had committed suicide. Not long ago, she was still the graceful and elegant queen who was the mother of the country, but now she has become a dead soul under the 3-foot white silk. The emperor, out of consideration for the late crown prince, gave her the funeral rites of a queen, but she could not be buried in the imperial mausoleum, but only in the mausoleum of concubines. Afterwards, the emperor ordered that concubine Chun be made empress. The king of Yong, the king of Qi, the king of Jin, and the king of Chu will move to their fiefdoms from now on. If they want to enter the capital in the future, they must submit documents in advance and obtain the emperor's permission before entering the capital. On the day when the kings left Kyoto, Crown Prince Morong came in person to see them off. After all, they were brothers, so they just put on a full show. Prince Yong and Prince Qi were both quite honest, and he was not afraid of them causing trouble, but Morong knew very well that Prince Jin and Prince Chu would never accept this. After arriving at the fiefdom, although it seemed far away from Kyoto, it actually gave them a good opportunity to recuperate. Morong will definitely not waste this time in vain. Gu Yu, with a 7-month-old belly, had to follow the team on a long journey to the fiefdom thousands of miles away. Since the Taiha Hall incident, everything had changed. Queen Tang and Prince Xian had fallen, and Prince Sun had become the crown prince, the one that everyone expected. Gu Yu actually knew very well that Morong would not give up so easily. However, if he still wanted to fight for it, the chances of success were slim. Once he failed, there would be no recovery. Gu Yu would not sit still and wait for death. She looked at Zhao Hui. Now that they had left the city gate of Kyoto and arrived at their fiefdom, Zhao Hui no longer had Morong's favoritism, nor the support of the Shangshu mansion. She could only let Morong control her. When she returns, she will appear as Princess Jin. Morong was riding on his horse. He looked back at the city gate of Kyoto, and the ambition in his eyes was not diminished at all. He will definitely come back again. He will not give up easily. Morong just wait and see. The winner is still unknown. In the blink of an eye, Su Wan was already 5 months pregnant. Her subsequent condition has been very good. Even if there was chaos in the palace, it could not affect her mood. Every day, when Jiang Yu was not at home, she would exchange parenting experiences with her eldest sister-in-law, second sister-in-law, and fourth sister-in-law. Jiacheng would come to play with them from time to time. Seeing their bulging bellies, she seemed to be more excited than they were. She would listen to one belly, and then another belly, and tease little Huayu. Yu Yinshuang was pregnant with twins, and her belly was particularly big at nearly 7 months. Now, the emperor has completely become a hands-off boss, leaving the state affairs to the crown prince to take care of, while he himself is recuperating in the company of the queen, spending his few remaining days. After a lifetime of hard work, what's wrong with taking a break? Kyoto finally ushered in a brief period of peace. Crown Prince Morong has been very diligent since he took over the government affairs temporarily. His response measures to some government affairs were also very reasonable, which were recognized by a number of ministers and praised by the emperor. Who could have thought that the 7th prince, who had the least chance of getting involved in the throne from the very beginning, would suddenly become a sensation overnight, break out of the siege, change everyone's opinion of him in a short period of time, and even receive high praise from the former crown prince? He came to power in order to consolidate his position and prevent foreign invasion. He successively suppressed the power of the feudal lords in Kyoto. The families of each prince's wife had high status in Kyoto. Although they had been moved to their fiefdoms, Morong had to be on guard against Morong's character. So, he found an opportunity to hold something against the Minister of Revenue Zhao Zhen, demoted him, and then supported his own people to take the position. The Ministry of Revenue is a very important department and must be firmly controlled. After all, it is in charge of the world's money and grain, and the profits are extremely high, so it must not fall into the control of other forces. Zhao Zhen was demoted, but not banished from Kyoto. He was given a job with no real substance so that he could be used as a hostage if needed in the future. Therefore, Morong thought about it and chose Su Jing, who had strong working ability, to serve as the Minister of Revenue. He made use of the two brothers of the Su family and promoted Su Qin to the chief commander of the City Defense Battalion, which meant that he had control over the entire city defense force of Kyoto. The reason was that he believed that Su Qin had the ability to hold the city. As for Jiangyu, Morong Huai did not forget him. He asked him to continue working in the Ministry of Justice, cooperating with his intelligence network in Fenghua Villa to investigate and punish some problematic officials, and then use the privileges of the Ministry of Justice to arrest and interrogate them. Morong Huai wanted to clean up the court and eliminate dissidents. This was the first major thing he had to do after coming to power. After arranging all these, Kyoto will be under his control, just like an iron barrel. No fly can fly close to him and spy on any of his news. He then carried out a series of reforms in some economically backward state capitals. Every place has its own unique features. Where there are good mountains, people will make their living from the mountains. Where there are good waters, people will make their living from the waters. The gap between the rich and the poor cannot be too big and should be reduced as much as possible. We have focused on the construction of some lower-level prefectures and cities, developed various imperial merchants in their regions, reduced taxes and levies, and boosted the economy. Ordinary people have less tax pressure and have more spare money to spend, which increases cash flow and boosts the economy. Using his modern knowledge, he invested in tourism development in the name of the court, built characteristic attractions, and attracted people from all over the country to visit, which also boosted the economy. After her son Morong Sheng was moved to his fiefdom, Shufei saw that concubine Chen had become the empress and was now favored by the emperor. The emperor usually only wanted her to serve him. However, after a series of actions by Morong Huai, she seemed to feel her situation and found it difficult to take a step forward. She even felt that her communication with her son was hindered, and she began to get anxious. She undoubtedly wanted to leave the palace, but now that the emperor was still alive, she could not leave no matter what. She knew very well that her existence would cause trouble to her son in the future and would hinder him from starting a rebellion, but she could not bring herself to do it. Jiang Yu is now the minister of the Ministry of Justice. He has to deal with a lot of things every day and is very annoyed. He has to deal with many cases every day, and he regrets a little why he agreed to help Morong Huai. His wife was pregnant and needed his company, so he wished he could stay at home every day. When all threats are eliminated, he will go back to being the idle prince he was before and do nothing. But Suwon was not affected at all. With so many sisters-in-law accompanying her every day, she was not bored at all. She even learned to make clothes for babies with them, which was very interesting. After Su Yi finished his work in Kyoto, he went to Xiangzhou with the betrothal gifts he had prepared. Su's father accompanied him and prepared the marriage certificate. When the time came, the matchmaker would be in Xiangzhou. His uncle and his family were all in Xiangzhou, so it would be convenient to have them help with many things. After the engagement, the next step was to discuss the marriage. Since the two places were far apart, going out for the bride and picking her up became a problem. In the end, Mr. Chian decided to move the whole family back to Kyoto. They have a house in Kyoto, and they originally returned to Xiangzhou to retire. However, they only have this one daughter, and now she is going to marry in Kyoto, so as parents they can only accommodate her. So Luo Shizhu and his family moved back to Kyoto in a grand manner. Su Yi came from afar with the betrothal gifts, which was his sincerity. Now he is not bothered to accompany his father-in-law and his family to move, which is also his attitude, and there is no conflict. With Morong Huai coming to power, the problem that Prince Yang had been worried about was solved. With the guarantors of Prince Jiang and Minister Su, he did not need to move to his fiefdom, so when he asked the emperor for permission to grant him a marriage, the emperor agreed without a second thought, and even said that he must give a gift when Jiaqing got married. Moreover, his brother, Prince Xiang, was absolutely devoted to him. He had been by his side and supporting him since he was still a prince, so after he ascended to the throne, he kept him in Kyoto. King Xiang was very smart. He had been honest and well-behaved for many years, not causing any trouble. He was also low-key and cautious. It could be said that he had never put any pressure on me, nor had he ever asked me for anything. Now that he had come to find him, the emperor had directly agreed to his request for marriage, and arranged for Jiaqing to marry Su Chen. He also personally selected an auspicious day for their wedding. The wedding date is set for the 12th lunar month, which is the 25th day of the 12th lunar month before the end of the year. There is still more than half a year left, and the mourning period for the late crown prince will be completely over in October, so this date is quite reasonable. Even getting married in the middle of winter is still relatively rare. But I'm not that picky. As long as it works, it's fine, even on New Year's Day. So far, all the brothers' major life events have been settled. Suwon's belly is getting plumper after 7 months of pregnancy. Duke Jiang is also very distressed because he has no woman by his side. Jiangyu is so busy every day that Duke Jiang, as a father-in-law, has to find ways to take care of his daughter-in-law. Seeing that she was getting older, he had to find a midwife and a wet nurse himself. But he is a grown man, and he doesn't understand. So, he shamelessly went to look for his in-laws. Since the two families lived close to each other, he had no choice but to trouble Su's mother. What else does Su's mother have to do? There is no wife in the Duke's mansion, and Suwon can't work too hard during her pregnancy, so as a mother, it is her duty to help her take care of things. Just at this time, my grandfather actually came to Kyoto. He brought a team of people with him, and packed up some things and came over. Then he left Fengyue Villa to Jiang Yunhe, that big enemy, to take care of temporarily. He calculated the time to come, wanting to participate in the birth of his great-grandson. It just so happened that Fengyue Villa was now functioning smoothly both inside and outside, so there was no need to worry about anything. Jiang Yunhe could handle it alone. So, he came to Kyoto without any hesitation. His coming. Jiang Yu even used the rest days he had saved for a long time all at once and took a 4-day break. I can spend time with my elderly grandfather and also with my wife and children. As soon as her grandfather arrived, Suwon found a partner in the play. She had nothing to do and choreographed a melodramatic play for her grandfather, who watched it with great interest. Luo Shiju and her friends moved back to Kyoto, and now all the sisters are gathered together. Every day the Su mansion and the Duke's mansion are very lively. The whole family eats, drinks, plays, chats, and eats together when they have nothing to do. The Duke's mansion specially built a stage for the arrival of my grandfather. Just as the two families were watching the play together, Yu Inshuang, who was 9 months pregnant, had a seizure. She was pregnant with twins, so everyone was naturally most concerned about her. Unlike ordinary pregnant women, she faced double torture. In an instant, the entire Su mansion fell into chaos. Suyun was as anxious as an ant on a hot pan. What the Su family lacked the least now was midwives and wet nurses. Yu Inshuang insisted on taking a walk every day in the later stages of her pregnancy. But it was my first child after all, so the pain lasted for a long time. Everyone was waiting outside. Jiang Yu felt the impact of a woman giving birth for the first time. His hands around Suwon's waist kept tightening. When Suyun heard Yu Inshuang screaming in pain, he finally couldn't help it. He rushed into the delivery room to accompany her despite everyone's objection. In ancient times, men were not allowed to enter bloody places like the delivery room, as it was said that it would affect men's luck in the outside world. But Suyun didn't care about all that. His woman was giving birth to his child in prison and had 1 foot in the grave. How could he despise her? Su's mother also stayed in the ancestral hall to pray. She treated every daughter-in-law equally and felt the same pain and worry for them. Yu Inshuang's labor took longer than Shen Qingli's. Her labor started in the afternoon and lasted until the next morning. As expected, they were twins, a boy and a girl, 2 very healthy babies who inherited their mother's big eyes. They are so cute. Suyun suddenly became a father, and he had 2 babies at once. His mouth was about to fly to the sky and stand shoulder to shoulder with the sun. He excitedly asked Suwon to give him a name. He had always said that his aunt would name his child in the future. Suwon held his stomach and burst into laughter. A boy and a girl. Of course you and your 4th sister-in-law will each take one. It's okay, Wanwan, we've already agreed that you can name the child. Yu Inshuang said with a smile, while lying on the bed. Suyun said that Suwon is a very meaningful existence in his life, not just a brother and sister. Soo-won is the turning point in his brilliant life. In that case, Soo-won is not sleepy anymore because she likes the name. Then I have to think carefully about how to give my two little nephews nice and poetic names. Won-won, let her let you name the baby in the future. Sun Linger said, pointing at the little one in her belly. Well, let her take them all, then she won't be polite and will take them all. In that case, don't blame me for giving it an unpleasant name. We believe you can. Everyone believes that Soo-won's naming skills are first class. After Soo-won returned home, he took out a pen and paper to think about naming his nephews. The names of the twins, a boy and a girl, must match each other. Just like she said herself, it should be both pleasant to listen to and poetic. She was in the study, writing down a bunch of names and asking Jong-yu to help her choose and give some advice. However, he looked thoughtful, as if his attention was not on the matter at all. Soo-won put down the pen, put his arms around his neck, and asked him what was wrong. Because at this time, she was sitting on his lap. What's wrong with you? Why do you look distracted? Jong met her, and she turned around. He took the opportunity to kiss her on the lips and held her even tighter. He put his hand on her bulging belly. The little one inside actually responded to him, puffing up a bulge to signal him. Every time he felt the powerful fetal movement, Jong-yu would have a wonderful feeling in his heart. In the belly of the woman he loved most, there was a life growing, which was the fruit of their love. I was wondering how I could make your childbirth less painful. Maybe it was because seeing his fourth sister-in-law giving birth was too scary. Whenever he thought about Soo-won suffering the same way, he felt his heart aching. So this is what he was thinking about. Soo-won couldn't help but find it funny. How can this be alleviated? This is unavoidable. Having a child will inevitably lead to this. But I still feel heartbroken, Jong-yu thought. When the time comes, he will definitely stay by her side and protect her. He knows how to care for his wife, which is better than many ordinary men.
Soo-won feels satisfied.
Then you should come back to accompany me more often and take me for a walk every night. This way I can have a smoother delivery. In the later stages of pregnancy, Soo-won had to walk more so that the baby could enter the pelvis as soon as possible and the fetal position would be correct to avoid dystocia. In a month or so, I will tell His Royal Highness the Crown Prince to let me come back to accompany you while you wait for the birth of your baby. As for the Ministry of Justice, let Ainin help me keep an eye on it. Anyway, the work of the Ministry of Justice is just like that. If you really can't solve it, just inform him and he will ask Ainin to keep an eye on it. Speaking of Ainin, Soo-won had a very high opinion of him. He thought of Lu Yun and Lu Ying who were by his side. They had been with him for so many years and were now in their 20s, but had not yet married. It just so happened that Jong-yu also had unmarried guards of marriageable age, each of whom was outstanding in ability and appearance. Lu Yun and Lu Ying served her wholeheartedly, so she should find a good place for them. By the way, does Ainin have any plans to get married? As soon as Soo-won opened her mouth, Jong-yu knew what she was planning, and then smiled and said, "You want to find someone to rely on for Lu Yun and the others?" Soo-won nodded and did not deny it. In fact, Lu Yun and his friends have dealt with Ainin and his friends a lot in the past few years. They all know each other well and are aware of each other's status. If they can really form a pair, it is not impossible. Ainin was trained by Jong-yu himself, so it goes without saying that he has excellent abilities in all aspects. Let me ask Ainin. It's time for him to get married. Feng-ying's son is already 1 year old. Jong-yu thought this suggestion was good, but he still wanted to ask Ainin's opinion. After that, the couple continued to choose a name. Eventually, she settled on 2 names. The twin brother is named Soo Ji-hung, and the sister is named Soo Zi. The names were shown to Soo Yun and Yu In-chuang, and the couple were very satisfied with the 2 names. Soo Ji-hung and Soo Zi, very nice names, and you can tell at first glance that they are brother and sister. Soo-won thought that this name was quite well chosen. The Soo family had 2 more babies, and the family suddenly became a lot more lively. Now you can hear the crying of babies every day. Soo Yun has become a nanny, coaxing the children every day, first coaxing the older ones and then the younger ones. This is the sweet burden of having 2 children at once. When it comes to taking care of children, Taking care of just one is enough to make new parents overwhelmed, and now with two, it is even more so. Moreover, I don't know if these two siblings inherited their father's temper. The brother and sister like to make trouble. They try their best to sleep during the day and stay awake at night. When the sister is not satisfied, she will start crying and then lead her brother to cry too. The two wet nurses were fighting a war at night. If the children didn't sleep, they wouldn't sleep either. When Sue's mother saw the two children crying so loudly, she asked Sumu to go and see them. Sumu took a look and found that there was nothing wrong with the children, just personality problems, which could not be avoided. Therefore, in order to reduce the burden on the two wet nurses, an additional nanny was arranged to serve. After Sue brought Luo Shiju's family back to Kyoto, the parents of the two families met and began to discuss the wedding date. The Sue family must have thought that the sooner the better, so the wedding date was set for October. In October, just at that time, Su Wan and Sun Linger also gave birth to their babies, which was double the joy in the family.
Shuchen felt helpless.
He was the most pitiful one. He was the third child, but the last one to get married. By that time, his brother's children could run and jump, but he had not yet gotten married. For Jiangyu, he asked Anan the next day, saying that the princess wanted to find a marriage for him and asked him to take a look at Lu Yun and Lu Ying. He could get in touch with them first, and it didn't matter if it didn't work out. As a result, when Anan heard this, a flush of anger instantly appeared on his face. Jiangyu looked at his expression, and it seemed like something was going on. Why, have you already taken a fancy to her? Jiangyu joked with a smile. Anan nodded and continued. Sir, can you ask the princess to ask Lu Ying for me to see if she is willing to be with me? It turned out to be Lu Ying. She is the younger sister and takes good care of Su Wan in daily life. The older sister Lu Yun is more rough in nature and doesn't like women's clothes. She always wears a neat female night outfit wherever she goes. Sister Lu Ying is more lively and sweet, so I think Anan is more attracted to her. When did it happen? Jiangyu was also very curious about being able to eat melons about his subordinates. Anan scratched his head, a little embarrassed. Oh, Prince, please don't ask anymore. He was embarrassed. Jiangyu no longer made things difficult for him, but smiled knowingly. Okay, love comes from nowhere, but it is deep and lasting, he understood. After returning, he could explain to Su Wan. When Su Wan heard that he had a chance with Lu Ying, he was so happy that he immediately called the two sisters in. Sisters didn't know why the princess called them. Lu Ying, Lu Yun, you are already 22 years old this year, and you are already past the age of marriage. Now I am going to find a marriage for each of you and prepare a dowry for you, okay? Sisters looked at each other and shook their heads. Princess, we will not marry and will stay with you forever. The two answered in unison. How can that be possible? How can I be so selfish as to ask you to stay with me and serve me for the rest of my life? Lu Ying, did you know that Anan likes you? He told the prince this himself. Let me ask you, are you willing to be with him? Are you willing? When Lu Ying heard Anan say this, she hesitated for a moment. Su Wan looked at her expression and thought, as long as she hesitated, it meant that she had a place for him in her heart. Lu Ying wants to continue following Su Wan, but she is also attracted to Anan. It is really difficult to make a decision. You don't have to feel conflicted. After you are together, you can still stay with me and the prince. There are many vacant courtyards in the Duke's mansion for you to live in. You and the guards like Anan have no families, so you are free. Wherever we are is your home. You two have been with me for more than 6 years. I can see your loyalty to me. I don't want you to lose the right to love others just because you follow me. I also want you to have your own little family and your own children in the future. Lu Ying was instantly moved, looked at Su Wan with a pout, and then nodded vigorously. My lady, I am willing to marry Anan. Thank you for your consideration. Lu Ying cried and kowtowed to Su Wan on the ground. Jiangyu didn't expect it to be so smooth, and he was happy for Anan. He wished that his brothers could have their own families instead of living for him. Okay, get up quickly. Why are you being so sentimental? Lu Ying, do you have someone in mind? I can make the decision for you. Having solved Lu Ying's marriage, we naturally cannot forget Lu Yun. Luyan was very happy to see that his sister had found a place to stay, but her words, "Princess, I don't have a man I like. I think I'm fine being alone. As for getting married, I've never thought about it. I just want to protect you for the rest of my life. Men will only influence me. I don't plan to get married. Thank you for making plans for me." Luyan is a typical non-marriage advocate. She lives like a rough man. If she has another one, her life will be unbearable. It can be seen that what she said was serious. How can you bring someone together if you don't have someone you like? Well, if you have someone you like, be sure to tell me right away, and I'll make the decision for you. Luyan nodded vigorously to show that he understood. Suwon prepared a pretty good dowry for Luying. To be his maid, they must have confidence and status, which is what they deserve. I don't know what happened this year. Everyone is pregnant. Over in the Eastern Palace, the Crown Princess also brought good news, saying that she is pregnant. Crown Prince Morong Hwai was very happy. For several days in a row, his eyes were filled with joy when he attended court, and he felt that he was getting twice the result with half the effort when reviewing memorials. The emperor had just recovered a little, so he decided to go out with the queen to travel and enjoy the beautiful scenery of his kingdom during this sunny season. He brought several imperial doctors, many servants and palace maids, and imperial guards to protect him, and disguised himself as a merchant caravan to the south of the Yangtze River.